The magnificent castle stands outside with its tall tower and beautiful design. The place looks like a royal palace. The guests gather inside the grand hall and admire the beautiful stained glass windows. Everyone enjoys the elegant celebration. A performer suddenly appears before the guests and creates a strange scene. The situation quickly turns into chaos. The guests panic and run away as the strange disturbance spreads through the hall. A man cannot believe what is happening and cries out in disbelief. He falls forward in shock after seeing the terrifying sight. The guests panic after seeing what happened and fear that General Hugel has been punched. They struggle to understand the terrible scene unfolding before them. Sage Cain Redrum stands in the middle of the chaos with a troubled expression. They believes that Cain has completely lost his mind and cannot understand why such a terrible situation has happened. General Hugel looks exhausted and angry after being attacked. He struggles to deal with the situation and curses Cain for going too far. Hugel is furious at Cain's insults. He demands to know whether Cain even knows who he is. General Hugel reminds Cain that he is an executive of the royal army and a member of a ducal house. He also questions whether Cain realizes that insulting him is the same as insulting the nation. Cain mocks Hugel by calling him unfit for a military man. He questions whether sitting at a desk all day has made Hugel's body dull and weak. Hugel finally loses his temper and rushes toward Cain Redrum. He calls Cain an insolent fool and declares that Cain Redrum will regret everything he has done. Cain flicks Hugel's forehead with a finger and sends Hugel flying backward from the force of the attack. Cain calls him attack too slow and shows that Hugel cannot match his speed. The guests realize that this is Cain's true strength. They understand that even General Hugel cannot stand against Cain. Cain decides to let Hugel off this time. Hugel tries to protest, but Cain remains in control of the situation. He becomes furious and warns Hugel not to say something like that again. He makes it clear that Hugel will not get off so easily next time. Hugel is furious after being defeated by Cain. He warns Cain not to think the fight is over and declares that causing such a disturbance will bring severe punishment. Hugel struggles after being attacked as Cain declares that his medal will be taken away soon. Cain becomes enraged and shouts at Cain to shut up while angrily rejecting the threat. He tells Careful to listen closely and explains that defeating the Demon King was not for some meaningless medal. He makes it clear that the medal is not what he truly wants. As Hugel remains behind him, Cain reveals that there is another reason for his actions. Cain reveals what he truly wants. He desires this country and its money, and he also wants Princess Lilia. His words show that his goals are far greater than a simple medal. The people in the hall gather and stare at Cain in shock. Everyone watches him as the truth behind his ambition becomes clear. The guests are disgusted by Cain and call him trash for his selfish ambition. Their harsh words make it clear that they see Cain as nothing more than a worthless sage. Cain suddenly appears before the crowd and leaves everyone shocked by his presence. The grand castle stands proudly as the guests realize that Cain truly intends to take the country and its wealth for himself. After that, a young girl travels through the forest while carrying a heavy backpack. She walks along the mountain path and struggles to keep moving as the long journey leaves her exhausted. The girl finally reaches a large house after her difficult journey. The girl quickly hurries toward the entrance because she has to get inside in a hurry. Her tired body can barely keep up as she rushes to the door and prepares to enter. The girl becomes nervous when Cain approaches her again. She reacts with fear and begs Cain not to kill her as she tries to escape the sudden encounter. He notices the girl and realizes that she has come again after traveling from the town at the base every single day. He decides to give her a reward for her effort today. The girl runs away in panic while Cain watches in confusion. She screams for help and desperately begs Cain not to kill her as the situation quickly turns into chaos. The newspaper lies open in his hands while the girl has already fled after the chaotic encounter. Cain picks up the newspaper and begins reading it with interest. He reads the newspaper and discovers the shocking headlines accusing the trash sage of plotting national treason. The articles reveal numerous crimes committed by the trash sage and question where Cain went after being exiled from the capital. He laughs loudly after reading the newspaper. He finds the situation absurd and cannot believe that such accusations have been written about him. Cain suddenly loses his balance and falls onto the floor with the newspaper beneath him. He struggles to understand how everything has ended up like this. Kudalir Gerstein believes the entire situation is Kane's own fault. She holds Kane responsible for everything that has happened. She explains that General Hugel punched him after Kane demanded the country and its money along with Princess herself. Kane insists that the entire situation was misunderstood and points out that being exiled was actually fortunate. Kane recalls the words written in the newspaper about peace for the country and funding for orphans. He also remembers the claim that Kane offered a vacation for Princess Lilia after all her efforts during the Demon King's victims. Kudalir insists that none of those words came from him and wonders what was actually said. She warns Kane that his words are easily misunderstood and tells him to be more careful even if Kane believes his actions are justified. Cordelia reminds Kane that it is not normal for a hero who defeated the Demon King to be treated like a traitor. Kane explains that every time he tries to talk to people he gets misunderstood. He recalls being mistaken for a thief when carrying his bag and being mistaken for an attacker when catching a pickpocket. Kane feels frustrated because people keep misunderstanding him no matter what he does. He admits that even he cannot defend himself anymore. In the end, the king himself exiled Kane and left him with no way to prove his true intentions. Kane had no choice but to punch the damn general after the general asked whether he wanted to buy children as slaves. Such a question was unacceptable, and Kane considered the punch a natural response to something so cruel. Cordelia made it clear that the general was a fool for trying to exploit others. Children were especially precious and were among the greatest treasures in the world. Treating them as something to be exploited was something Kane could not accept. The conversation then turned toward how the general had approached Kane in the first place. He tried to remember the exact question he had asked Kane. She had simply asked whether Kane liked children. The innocent question had received an unexpectedly enthusiastic response. Kane proudly made it clear that children were something he truly loved. His expression and confident smile showed how certain he was about his answer. Cordelia immediately wondered why Kane had answered so definitely. Cordelia told Kane to look at himself in a mirror. His expression made him look like a complete pervert. Kane was forced to consider how his face appeared to others. Kane realized that his expression really did make him look suspicious. He remembered that even when he had tried to give sweets to children as a delivery gift, they had run away from him. Cordelia told Kane not to be so down. She had good news for him today and wanted to lift his spirits. Cordelia became interested when Kane mentioned good news. Cordelia explained that thanks to the general slipping up this time, the group had managed to wipe out a human trafficking organization. Her success meant that the dangerous operation had finally been dealt with, and the people involved had been brought down. Kane was surprised by the news and could only react with genuine disbelief at how well things had turned out. Cordelia continued with the good news and revealed that the entire guild had been mobilized. All of the slaves had been rescued, and the operation had succeeded in saving everyone who had been caught by the trafficking organization. Kane apologized for leaving her and explained that it was nothing personal. Cordelia playfully added that perhaps this time Kane would finally sign a marriage certificate for her. She seemed delighted by the idea and continued to press the matter with an affectionate enthusiasm. Kane reacted to the suggestion by making it clear that her taste was still terrible. However, Cordelia warned that they still did not have proof linking the organization to the general. She urged Kane to remain careful because the general had been acting suspiciously lately. Kane was told that there was no need to be so cautious over a single soldier since the organization had already been caught. Cordelia explained that someone seemed to be acting as the general's personal spy. Any information connected to the general was being erased by that person before it could be traced. Kane then made his own resolve clear as the guild director. He would definitely catch the person behind the suspicious activity and uncover the truth. He understood the situation and agreed to be careful until then. He accepted the warning and thanked Cordelia for telling him. Princess Lilia was also suspected of assisting with the investigation against the general. Cordelia considered having the princess on their side a major advantage. With Princess Lilia as an ally, it was like having 100 allies supporting their efforts. Cordelia remembered how furious Princess Lilia had been the other day. Her anger had become so intense that she crushed a stone pillar with her bare hand. The incident showed just how dangerous her temper could become. Kane apologized for contacting Cordelia at such a time and promised to contact her later. Cordelia accepted the apology and told Kane that she would be waiting whenever he was ready. Kane suddenly noticed something unusual when he entered the room. He stopped and wondered what was happening as the unexpected sight caught his attention. A group of heavily armed soldiers stood behind General as he confronted Kane. The general looked serious as he approached Kane with his troops gathered behind him. His presence made it clear that the meeting was not a casual visit. General looked directly at Kane and demanded confirmation that he was Kane Redrum. He then questioned who the general was and why he had come to find him. Kane noticed the crest on the soldiers' uniforms and recognized them as Crest Kingdom soldiers. Their presence made the situation more serious as he realized that the men had come under official authority. Kane then noticed the large box being transported behind the soldiers. The box was sealed with magic script and secured with silver chains and a magic lock. No matter how it looked, the contents were clearly considered dangerous. The man explained that the soldiers served directly under General Hugel. They had come to deliver an order to Kane on his authority. The unexpected visit made it clear that Kane was about to become involved in another serious matter. Kane questioned what kind of order General Hugel had brought for him. He could not understand what that bastard wanted from him, and clearly had no interest in accepting trouble without an explanation. The soldiers immediately moved to silence Kane and warned him not to engage with the general. The harsh insult against Kane only made the situation more hostile as the soldiers tried to keep the confrontation under control. The soldiers were considered devoted to the general and were not supposed to know about his crimes. Kane reminded them that he was not part of the military. There was no reason for him to involve himself in military affairs, and the situation had nothing to do with his position. Kane was then reminded that regardless of who he was obligated to cooperate because the matter involved national secrecy. The order left little room for refusal. Kane regarded the demand as a rather one-sided order. Kane asked whether the matter concerned the large sealed box that had been brought with the soldiers. General confirmed that the box was indeed the matter entrusted to Kane. Kane wondered what could possibly be inside. He considered whether it contained a cursed item or perhaps a violent monster. General ordered the soldiers to open the box. He told Kane that the truth would become clear once the container was opened and its contents were revealed. As the chains were removed, Kane suddenly found himself caught off guard by what happened. The heavy box crashed onto the ground with tremendous force. The impact shook the area as the sealed container finally came to rest after being opened. Inside the box, a young girl was sitting alone on the ground. She had drawn her knees close to her body and rested her head against her arms. The girl struggled weakly after being released from the sealed box. She appeared exhausted and frightened as she tried to recover from the harsh conditions inside the container. Kane and the soldiers could only watch as the situation became more serious. Kane suddenly confronted General with anger. He demanded to know what the meaning of this was and questioned whether the army had started dealing in slaves. General immediately rejected the accusation and ordered Kane not to be ridiculous. He insisted that the girl was far worse than a mere slave. The little girl was revealed to be a cursed child who carried the Demon King's blood within her. Her frail appearance concealed a terrifying truth that completely changed the meaning of her existence. Kane was stunned by the revelation. The truth was far beyond anything he had expected and left him unable to hide his shock. The explanation continued with the story of the Demon King. About 10 years ago, a great calamity had suddenly appeared across the continent. That disaster had begun with the rise of the Demon King and had thrown the entire land into chaos. The Demon King possessed immense magical power and destroyed everything in its path. Countless lives were lost without regard for borders or race. Just as the world seemed doomed, Sage Kane defeated the Demon King after 3 days and nights of battle. His victory finally brought the endless disaster to an end and restored hope to the people. Kane was shocked by the mention of the Demon King's daughter. General explained that the Demon King's remains had been carefully analyzed. Those magical waves were traced to a single source. The investigation eventually led them to the Demon King's daughter and revealed her existence. Kane could not believe that the frightened girl before him was the child they had been talking about. General ordered Kane to let go of him at once. He insisted that everything had already been explained and showed growing irritation at Kane's reaction. He explained that the girl had been secured in complete secrecy. Kane questioned how a child could possibly be so defiant. General insisted that the girl was so defiant that even the army had been unable to handle her. He then ordered the soldiers to prove his words by telling them to do it. A soldier drew a sword and raised it toward the helpless girl. Kane immediately realized what was about to happen while the girl remained frozen in fear. The frightened girl looked toward the approaching blade without understanding what awaited her. Fear filled her expression as the soldier closed the distance with the weapon still aimed at her. The sword flashed through the air and struck toward the girl without hesitation. Kane reached out in panic and desperately shouted for the attack to stop. The girl trembled in confusion as a quiet cry escaped her lips. The instant the blade reached the girl, a violent burst of magical power erupted from her body. The overwhelming force exploded in every direction and swallowed the cart in a deafening shockwave. Even the soldier who had attacked her was thrown back by the sudden blast. General explained that the girl possessed immense magical power equal to the Demon King. Whenever she resisted, the soldiers were the ones who suffered injuries. The repeated attacks had made it impossible for them to control her safely. Kane quietly realized that the girl's magical power was definitely similar to the Demon King's. Even so, he admitted that he had never expected the Demon King to have a daughter. Kane looked at the trembling girl and questioned why she was so frightened. With power like hers, she could easily defeat the soldiers surrounding her. General told Kane not to worry. He revealed a mysterious stone and explained that magic could be channeled into it. The item had been prepared to deal with the girl's extraordinary power. As the magic stone activated, it drew the overflowing magic out of the girl's body. The violent energy rushed into the stone, and the girl cried out in pain as the power was forcefully stripped away. The overwhelming surge finally subsided, and the girl collapsed onto the ground. She repeatedly apologized because she never meant to hurt anyone. Her trembling voice carried nothing but regret as she begged for forgiveness. Kane heard the girl's desperate apologies and learned that she could not control her own power. She pleaded for everything to stop because she only wanted to speak. Kane immediately noticed the collar around the girl's neck. He realized that the strange device was the source of her suffering and demanded to know what that collar was. General explained that the collar was a special device developed by the army. It produced electric shocks, and its power could be adjusted as long as it did not kill the wearer. He insisted that the girl might look like an ordinary child, but she was still a monster. He believed that the best way to discipline a monster was through pain and considered such treatment completely justified. General handed the magic stone to Kane and entrusted both the girl and the stone to him. He believed Kane was surely capable of taking responsibility for them. Kane suddenly struck the captain without the slightest hesitation. The powerful blow sent the man flying through the air and left everyone frozen in complete disbelief. The soldiers stared at Kane in shock and demanded to know what had just happened. They hurried toward the captain and begged him to pull himself together. Their anger quickly flared as they accused Kane of going too far by attacking the captain after already striking the general. He dismissed the furious shouting around him and remarked that weaklings were always the noisiest. The girl slowly lifted her head and looked toward Kane. Kane let out a short snort as the collar snapped apart inside his hand. His silent gesture carried nothing but contempt and satisfaction, while the broken restraint fell away without hesitation. The young girl slowly lifted her face toward Kane as confusion filled her expression. Kane declared that they should enjoy the electricity they cherished for as long as they wished. Kane raised a single finger toward the soldiers and branded them as nothing more than worthless trash. The terrifying spell swept over the mansion with overwhelming force, while every trace of mercy vanished beneath the crushing torrent of destructive power. The violent impact swallowed the battlefield beneath an explosion of magical power, while the soldiers were consumed by the relentless assault. Kane's soldier wore a confident smile as the overwhelming magic continued to erase every trace of resistance before him. The young girl trembled as fear refused to leave her heart while a soldier vanished beneath the crushing attack. The soldiers collapsed across the shattered ground while the destruction finally came to an end. Kane stepped toward the young girl and declared that the next turn belonged to her. The frightened child shrank back with a trembling breath as terror refused to release its grip. Her desperate apology poured out without restraint while she pleaded for mercy and struggled to endure the unbearable suffering. She begged for the pain to end because every moment hurt beyond endurance. The shattered collar fell away from the young girl as the final restraint disappeared. The broken fragments scattered across the ground while the burden that had tormented her finally came to an end. Kane gently assured the young girl that the collar had already been removed. The young girl could only wonder why Kane would ask such a question. Kane questioned back why the young girl did not like that crappy collar either, because such a cruel restraint could never be welcomed. He gently placed his hand upon the young girl and acknowledged that she had endured well for someone so small. He assured the young girl that there was nothing to be afraid of anymore because she was safe. A faint voice finally escaped the young girl as emotion filled her trembling face. The young girl buried herself in Kane's embrace as a loud cry finally escaped her lips. Kane quietly held her close and allowed every tear and every cry to pour out without holding anything back. Kane remained beside the young girl in silence as she sat before him. High healing covered the young girl in gentle light, and a soft breath escaped her lips as the pain slowly faded away. He decided that healing came first. The young girl wondered why nothing hurt anymore. Kane confirmed that no wounds or marks were left and asked whether everything was all right. Kane decided that the bath and food could wait until later. He first asked whether the young girl was really the Demon King's daughter. The girl confessed that she did not know and did not know her mother or father. Kane accepted the answer and understood that a soldier had told her that she was the Demon King's daughter, then Kane quietly acknowledged it. Kane asked whether Fio's name was Fio, and Fio answered that it was actually Filianora. Kane asked where she had been until now, and Fio answered that it had been a place with lots of women. Kane quietly accepted that everyone called the place Shokan. Fio gently revealed that she was picked up there as a baby. Fio continued that she helped the women there every day. Kane silently listened as Fio admitted that one day they called for her. Kane quietly understood that there was still no connection to the Demon King so far. Fio happily remembered that she answered with yes as soon as they called for her. Fio tremblingly revealed that the soldiers took her away and locked her inside a small room. Fio continued that everything happened after that. Kane quietly decided that was enough. Kane gently placed his hand on Fio's head and assured her that there were no soldiers there. Kane promised that even if they came again, he would drive them away. Fio timidly asked whether Fio could ask something. Kane quietly answered with a simple question, asking what Fio wished to ask. Kane heard Fio call him Trash Sage, and could only accept the unexpected title with an awkward smile. Kane gently admitted that Kane was his real name. Fio softly repeated Kane's name. Fio quietly asked whether Kane was truly not going to kill Fio. Kane gently asked why Fio would think such a thing. Fio quietly answered that the soldiers said it. Fio sadly believed that Fio would be killed too because the Trash Sage loved bullying children. Kane could only accept that it was a terrible rumor. Fio softly apologized. Kane gently assured her that Kane was not mad at her. Fio sadly believed that the Demon King did bad things. She believed that she must be bad too because of that. Fio blamed she for everything and believed that everyone hated her. Kane quietly asked whether the soldiers had told her that. Fio softly admitted that they had. Kane gently asked Fio to listen carefully. He revealed that his hometown was burned by the Demon King. He quietly prepared to tell her the truth. Fio could only stare at Kane in silence as every word slowly reached her heart. Everything was consumed by flames because of the Demon King. Kane watched every part of his hometown disappear before his eyes. Kane desperately searched for everyone. Kane called for his father while running through the burning village. Only despair answered Kane. Kane stared at the Demon King and realized that everything happened because of the Demon King. Kane cursed the cruel fate before swearing that Kane would definitely make that bastard pay. Kane gently revealed that he became strong to defeat the Demon King, so no one else would suffer again. Fio quietly apologized. Kane softly asked why she was apologizing. Fio could only look at Kane in confusion. Kane gently reminded Fio that Fio did not burn Kane's village. Kane assured her that she had done nothing wrong even if she really had the Demon King's blood. Fio hesitantly asked whether she could really believe that even though she was the Demon King's daughter. Kane firmly answered that Fio was truly not bad. Kane gently embraced her and assured her that no matter what anyone said, she was not bad. Kane asked Fio to never forget those words. Fio quietly accepted every word. Kane held she close and admitted that Kane was not even sure whether Fio was truly the Demon King's daughter because similar magic could simply be a coincidence. Kane decided that matter could be checked later. He gently offered she some cookies because Fio had to be hungry. She happily admitted that the cookies were delicious. Kane turned his attention toward the collar and quietly decided to search for the truth behind it. He examined the shattered collar and silently studied every broken piece. Kane discovered that the collar contained explosion magic. He realized that when struck by attack magic above a certain level, it would detonate within a radius of about 100 meters. He coldly concluded that they expected Kane to attack Fio and kill both of them. He quietly admitted that the trap was more vicious than expected. Kane turned after sensing her behind him. Fio found Kane looking scary. Kane asked what it was. She admitted Kane looked scary. Kane assured Fio there was nothing to worry about. He dismissed it as nothing. She answered with a soft yeah before calling to him. She held out a cookie toward him. She thought Kane might be hungry. He responded with a quiet sound. He looked at the cookie in surprise. Fio asked whether Kane wanted a cookie as well. Kane suddenly recoiled in surprise when Fio answered that she was not scared. She believed Kane did not do bad things to her. Kane stood frozen as those words echoed inside his heart. Fio was not scared, and that simple answer left Kane speechless. He looked at her with growing disbelief. Kane quietly thought that she was a good girl, and she wondered whether being a good girl was enough. Kane believed there was no way such a good girl could be the Demon King's daughter. Fio was the best girl Kane had ever met. Fio softly repeated that she was a good girl. She happily admitted that it was the first time anyone had ever called her that. A gentle laugh escaped her as a bright smile bloomed across her face. Kane stared at Fio in complete surprise. She smiled, and that single smile left Kane completely stunned. She skipped forward with light steps as cheerful laughter filled the air. Joy overflowed from Fio as laughter continued to echo around the quiet mansion. Meanwhile, a woman silently watched the aftermath from the shadows. Her gaze remained fixed ahead as the report unfolded before her. The soldiers had been annihilated. No fatal injuries had been inflicted on Sage Kane or the Demon King's daughter. The woman quietly repeated that the operation had failed. She ordered the report to be delivered to the general. The cursed Demon King's daughter remained alive. The woman firmly resolved that she would eliminate Fio without fail. Determination filled her heart as that single goal became absolute. She quietly reminded herself that everything would be done for the sake of her clan. She looked upon the sight of Fio laughing beside Kane. The pride of her clan stood above everything else, and that resolve would never waver. A loud scream echoed across the mansion as someone cried out in panic. The delivery girl believed Kane was going to kill her. Kane desperately tried to stop the misunderstanding. Kane insisted that it was only a misunderstanding because Kane only wanted the woman to accept his usual thanks. Kane quietly admitted that the attempt did not work. Since it worked with Fio, Kane thought there might be a chance. Kane soon realized that Fio was simply the special one after all. It had been 10 days since Kane met Fio. At first, Fio had been almost completely bedridden. Thanks to the nurse's care, Fio had recovered enough to walk on her own. Fio had been smiling more often. Kane believed that at this rate she would probably be fully healthy before long. Even so, Kane knew Fio was not completely healed yet. Kane suddenly rushed toward Fio after noticing something was wrong. He anxiously called Fio and asked what had happened. She desperately begged Kane not to come any closer and pleaded for Kane to stop. Kane stood frozen as Fio repeatedly apologized. She could only whisper that she was sorry again and again while Kane looked at Fio in silence. Every time the middle of the night arrived, she suffered nightmares and woke again and again. Kane gently reassured Fio that everything was okay and that there was nothing scary there. He stayed beside Fio until she calmed down and fell back asleep. Kane quietly realized that those nightmares had become less frequent. Even so, emotional scars did not heal easily. Kane bitterly questioned what the title of Demon King's daughter truly meant. Even if that was true, Kane could not understand what Fio had ever done to deserve such suffering. Kane decided that the score would be settled sooner or later. Kane decided that Cordelia had to be contacted first. He believed that matter could be handled in time. He learned that Cordelia was investigating the general's case. He wanted her to investigate Fio as well and decide what should happen next. Kane also hoped that she could find her real parents and return to them. Fio called Kane. Kane turned with surprise. She insisted that staying in bed any longer was impossible because getting up felt necessary. Kane looked surprised when Fio suddenly clung to his arm. She explained that after waking up and not finding him there, she went looking for him until she finally found him. She admitted she was glad to find him. Kane wondered if it was really right for a child to become so attached to someone like him. He realized Fio had become attached to him because she had no one else to rely on. Even so, he believed there were surely many people in this world who would treat her kindly. Before continuing his revenge, Kane decided he needed to help Fio expand her world. Kane accepted that it was finally time to eat. While Fio continued holding onto his arm, Kane asked if there was anything she wanted to eat and promised to make anything for her. Fio hesitated before remembering the yellow food from yesterday. She recalled it was fluffy and delicious. He realized she meant hamburger steak and asked if that was what she wanted to eat as well. Kane noticed Fio did not even know the name hamburger. He explained that hamburger steak was a dish made by shaping minced meat into a patty before grilling it. He asked if she wanted to try it, and she eagerly declared that she would definitely eat it. Kane smiled warmly after seeing her excited reaction. Kane agreed to make hamburger steak right away. Kane fell silent after realizing that making hamburger steak meant going shopping. Fio looked at him with quiet curiosity while she accepted that shopping had become necessary. He remembered that revealing his identity in town would only create another disturbance. He knew the so-called trash sage had already caused enough trouble throughout the town and could not move around freely. He received the food and daily necessities that Cordelia had arranged to be delivered to the house. He learned the next delivery would not arrive for a while. He also realized cooking was impossible without ingredients. He noticed Fio did not have enough clothes or daily necessities either, and understood a trip to town had become unavoidable. He quietly considered the situation. He concluded this might become a good opportunity. Kane reminded himself that Fio could not stay with him forever. He wanted to find Fio's real parents and send her back. He believed Fio needed to grow used to people other than himself. He also wanted to help expand her world. Kane quickly made up his mind. He announced that they were going shopping today and that they were going to town. Fio looked up at him with surprise as the word town echoed in her thoughts. Fio stepped into town for the first time and gazed across the lively streets with endless wonder. The beautiful scenery stretched before her, while a joyful cry escaped her lips. The bustling streets of the town spread before Fio as countless people filled every corner. She looked around in amazement and realized there were so many people everywhere. Kane also discovered the town was far livelier than expected. Fio quietly hid behind Kane while staying close to his side. Kane noticed the change and asked what was wrong. Fio looked at Kane with uneasiness and admitted she might end up using magic again. Kane fell silent for a moment before asking whether the magic came out whenever she became surprised or experienced something similar. Fio quietly admitted that seemed to be the case. She explained that she could not use magic before. She revealed that after the soldiers did terrible things to her, something changed, and she became able to use magic. Kane quietly reflected on Fio's words. Kane realized her ability looked like it had truly awakened. Kane remembered hearing that abilities sometimes awakened when someone's life was in danger. He believed Fio had probably awakened because of that. He gently assured Fio that she did not need to worry. Kane held out his hand and offered the flower to her. Fio accepted it with surprise and let out a small sound as Kane encouraged her to take it. Kane explained that magic was not something to fear. He believed that if Fio used it well, then it could become her greatest weapon. Kane assured her that if she kept practicing, then she would definitely be able to use magic like Kane someday. She became excited and believed that could really happen. He told Fio that today's practice would focus on holding magic back. Kane asked if she could do it. Fio answered that she would try her best. She happily agreed with Kane and accepted the praise with delight. Kane smiled with satisfaction and praised Fio as a good girl. Kane noticed people staring at him. He realized that face was familiar. He feared those people would recognize him as the trash sage who had caused trouble in town. He feared that recognition would create another scene. The people wondered if that face belonged to someone they knew. They believed that face looked exactly the same. Another person wondered if the scene was a kidnapping. Someone even considered calling another person for help. He forced a smile because those people had mistaken him for someone else. He briefly believed everything would be fine. The next instant, he realized the situation was far worse than expected. Kane struggled to find a way to clear that misunderstanding because every choice seemed impossible. Fio watched Kane in confusion. A passerby warned that rushing would only cause a fall. The warm scene between the parent and child continued before Kane could react. The child happily embraced the parent, while gentle laughter filled the air. He watched that scene and immediately realized this was the perfect chance. He asked Fio to lend an ear. He quietly explained that from that moment onward Fio should call Kane Papa. Fio looked at him in confusion because that request sounded strange. Kane quickly urged Theo not to think of it as something weird. Kane explained that his reputation was not good. He warned that if people discovered the truth, they might both be driven out of town. He concluded that for the moment they should pretend to be parent and child. Theo quietly looked at Kane without understanding why he had called. Kane asked whether Theo had been listening. She honestly admitted that nothing had been heard. She softly repeated the word Papa. She carefully tried to remember that new way of calling Kane. He immediately realized that was exactly what had been needed. Theo quietly repeated Papa again and again while trying to become familiar with the new word. Theo suddenly called Papa with bright excitement. Kane froze in surprise because the call came far louder than expected. Theo happily hugged him and celebrated that she finally had a Papa. Kane listened to those joyful words with quiet surprise. The people nearby quietly observed them and felt that the two did not look alike at all. He grew uneasy after hearing those words. He quickly decided they should keep a low profile like this. He decided that the general store should be the first destination. He noticed a pregnant woman nearby. He immediately decided they should help that pregnant woman. Kane urged Theo to come along. She happily agreed while following beside him. 1 hour passed and Theo quietly lowered her head. The bright excitement from earlier had completely faded into silence. He believed helping that woman had been a good deed. Theo quietly listened without showing any agreement. Kane noticed something was wrong and wondered whether she was tired. She denied it. She instead reminded him that after helping that lady he had spoken with many people. He answered with a simple agreement. She sadly explained that everyone became frightened of him. They either ran away or cried after seeing him, even though he tried to help with heavy bags. She believed that was truly sad. He could only stand there in speechless shock after hearing those honest words. Theo asked whether Papa helped people. Kane admitted that seeing people fear him would make her sad. He gently asked whether Theo remembered that the Demon King had destroyed Theo's homeland. Theo quietly admitted that memory had not been forgotten. He remembered that day and admitted that not even one important person could be saved. Because of that painful regret, Kane wished for a future where no one would ever suffer or feel sadness again. He admitted that saving everyone at once was impossible. He believed that continuing to help the people standing before him would someday allow that kindness to reach everyone. Kane revealed that helping people was the reason behind every step he chose to take. Kane admitted that even though helping people was the right thing to do, Kane still ended up frightening them anyway. Theo quietly called Papa while listening to every word. Kane turned toward she after hearing that quiet voice. She firmly declared that she would help too. He paused in surprise after hearing those determined words. He softly repeated the word help because those words caught him completely by surprise. She nodded with certainty and showed no hesitation. She promised to copy Kane and help people just as Kane had helped her. Kane quietly accepted those sincere feelings and gently answered with a simple agreement. Kane listened as she believed that if she helped too, then they would surely become able to help everyone in the world. She believed everyone would understand that Papa was a good person. Theo promised that she would do her best. Kane looked at her without finding words. She became someone far kinder than Kane had ever imagined. Kane gently praised her as a truly good child. He urged Theo to tell Papa first if anything ever happened. She happily promised that it would happen. Kane led Theo to Toradorok's shop because this was the place they needed to visit for shopping. She stepped inside and became amazed because so many things filled the shop. Kane assured her that they would shop for everything she needed here. The shopkeeper welcomed them warmly and prepared to help with anything they needed. The greeting stopped midway because the shopkeeper suddenly recognized Kane. Kane froze after hearing the name Trash Sage Kane Redrum because the words struck him without warning. The shopkeeper admitted that Kane looked familiar because the face was well known. The shopkeeper explained that supplies had been gathered in the royal capital until recently, and that was where Kane had been seen before. Theo watched him with quiet concern. Kane understood the situation. Kane apologized and decided to wait outside for a while instead. Kane placed a bag of money on the counter and entrusted it to the shopkeeper. He asked the shopkeeper to use the money and choose everything that she needed. He reassured Theo that everything would be fine because he would return soon. Theo quietly asked whether Papa was leaving somewhere. Kane entrusted everything else to the shopkeeper before walking outside. The shopkeeper looked at Kane with a gentle smile and admitted that the rumors were only rumors because Kane did not seem like a bad person. Kane could only stare in disbelief because someone had understood the truth with nothing more than a single glance. He struggled to accept it while the shopkeeper simply smiled with quiet certainty. Kane could hardly believe that someone truly understood him. The shopkeeper gently revealed that money told its own story because a single glance at it was enough to understand everything. She happily confessed a deep love for money because the way money was earned could always be seen. She concluded that the money had definitely been earned by helping people and asked whether that was true. Kane awkwardly admitted that it was true, but wondered what kind of strange ability could reveal such a thing. Theo innocently asked whether Big Sister was afraid of Papa. The girl gently answered that Kane seemed like a good person and held no fear toward him. She quietly admitted that Kane was only being judged through spending habits and finances. Kane could only stare in disbelief because the answer sounded far too accurate. She finished preparing everything and assured that the purchase covered everything Theo needed. Kane apologized for causing trouble to the shopkeeper. She warmly answered that it was not a problem at all. She introduced herself as Toka Torodokuro and asked everyone to simply call her Toka. Toko admitted that rumors could never be trusted. She never expected the so-called trash sage to become such a wonderful father. Kane awkwardly admitted that many things had happened. She curiously asked about the rumors. Toka explained that people claimed Kane was strong enough to defeat the Demon King. Toka continued with even stranger stories that claimed Kane kidnapped women and built a harem. Other rumors insisted Kane kidnapped children and ate them at night. Toka concluded that such stories did not describe trash at all because they described a complete monster. She gently reassured Kane that there was no need to worry because Kane was truly a good person. Kane quietly thanked Toka for believing in him. Toka suddenly remembered that Kane was a sage and believed Kane knew a great deal about magic. She asked whether that was true. Kane admitted that the claim was mostly true. She then revealed that something needed Kane to examine. She presented several boxes filled with magic stones and quietly waited for Kane to inspect them. Kane picked up one crystal and recognized it as a beginner fire magic stone. Theo curiously wondered whether it was a magic stone. Kane explained that it was a special stone that sealed magic inside. He continued that anyone could use the magic item because breaking the stone would activate the spell. Toka asked why Kane needed such a large number of magic stones. He explained that the stones would be used to deal with magic wolves. Toka revealed that about a week earlier a merchant caravan had been attacked by around 20 magic wolves. Since that day the damage had never stopped. He asked whether her had requested help from the Adventurers Guild. Toka admitted that no request had been made. She explained that the nearby dungeon had been sealed by ice and adventurers were now arriving to drive away the wolves together with the town youth group because there was no other choice. Kane quietly considered the explanation and realized the amount of magic stones would never be enough. He had only wanted to know whether the supply could solve the problem. Before Kane could continue, someone suddenly called out for Toka from inside the shop. Kane looked toward the rushing mayor as the worried man asked why the hurry. The mayor revealed that something terrible had happened, and his voice carried growing fear. Kane turned silent as the mayor revealed that the magic wolves had appeared once again. Toka stiffened beside him, while Theo listened in silence. The mayor continued that the town youth group had chased the wolves into the forest. Shock swept across Kane as the meaning of the report struck his heart. The mayor revealed that the demon wolves had appeared once again. He continued that the young men had chased the monsters and rushed into the forest. A chill ran through Kane as the truth settled within his heart. He understood that ordinary people entering the forest without the strength of adventurers were walking toward death. He also knew that the forest was the perfect hunting ground for magic beasts. A strained breath escaped as the danger became painfully clear. Kane immediately declared that the situation was serious and that they needed to hurry and save them. The mayor revealed that the desperate plea was the very reason for coming to the store in search of help. He turned toward Kane with renewed hope while wondering who stood before him. Toka stepped beside Kane and reassured the mayor that there was no need to worry. She declared that Kane was someone worthy of trust. Toka revealed that Kane was incredibly strong. The mayor wondered whether Kane was an adventurer. Kane answered that the truth was close enough because his strength surpassed that of most people. Kane declared that he would enter the forest and rescue the reckless youths who had run inside. Relief spread across the mayor as heartfelt gratitude filled his voice for the hope Kane had given. The mayor quickly urged Toka to accompany him to the town gate. Toka received another request to distribute potions to anyone who had been injured. Toka accepted the task without hesitation while the mayor hurried away. Kane instructed Fio to remain behind. Fio immediately declared that Fio would also come along. Kane turned toward Fio in surprise as the unexpected answer left him speechless. She insisted that she would help as well because Kane was going to rescue people in danger. She believed helping others was the right thing to do and refused to stay behind. Kane gently called Fio by name before leaving. He thanked her for those sincere feelings, but explained that the forest was too dangerous. He asked Fio to wait safely at the shop instead. She reluctantly accepted the request and lowered her head with disappointment. Kane encouraged her to be a good girl and promised to return. Fio quickly called out for Kane to wait, but he had already rushed away without slowing his steps. Kane rushed through the streets with unwavering speed as every passing moment carried greater danger. He activated a searching spell and spread his senses across the forest. His magic swept through the trees until the missing youths finally appeared within his awareness. He discovered that the youths were 2 kilometers away. He realized there was no time to waste and decided that flying would bring him there before the situation grew even worse. Kane unleashed flight magic and descended from the sky with overwhelming speed. The people nearby looked toward Kane in complete confusion. They could not understand what had just appeared before their eyes and could only wonder what they had witnessed. A magic wolf sensed Kane's arrival and lifted its head toward the sudden presence. The youths desperately fought against the pack of magic wolves as the beasts surrounded them from every direction. The youths admitted that victory was impossible without magic stones. Despair slowly spread among them, but they refused to surrender because they believed the mayor would bring help. The youth desperately believed everyone only needed to hold out a little longer. A magic wolf suddenly leaped toward one of the youths from behind. Another youth desperately shouted a warning as the charging beast closed the distance in an instant. Kane descended from the sky with flight magic and struck the charging magic wolf before the fangs could reach the young adventurer. Kane faced the remaining danger without hesitation, and his unwavering expression revealed that protecting them had already become his only priority. The defeated magic wolf flew across the forest and crashed through the trees with unstoppable force. One of them struggled to understand what stood before them as the sight of the wolves left everyone frozen with fear. Kane faced the magic wolves as several frightened people stared in disbelief at the beasts surrounding them. He released body enhancement and charged into battle. He branded the wolves as filthy bastards before launching a fierce attack. The fierce barrage swept through the pack, and every wolf was struck by the overwhelming assault. Kane looked over the fallen magic wolves and accepted that the battle had ended. The people stood in amazement because Kane had defeated so many beasts in a single instant. The rescued villagers bowed with heartfelt gratitude because Kane had saved their lives, and they could never repay such kindness. Kane revealed that the mayor had asked for help and urged everyone not to worry. The young men wondered why Kane had not used fire magic during the battle. Kane revealed that fire remained the best way to drive beasts away and quietly questioned whether the remark had been made in jest. The young man insisted that no mockery had been intended because the thought had never crossed his mind. Kane warned that fire should never be used carelessly in a place like the forest. Kane warned that using fire inside the forest would start a forest fire, and the flames would become dangerously fierce. Kane explained that such destruction would bring suffering to the trees and plants. The stunned villagers silently listened as the warning settled into their hearts. Kane reflected that the young men had finally survived the winter and feared that burning the forest would waste everything. Kane believed such destruction would only bring suffering to the animals. The villagers could only stare in confusion as they listened. He firmly ordered that fire was absolutely forbidden in the forest and demanded that everyone remember those words. He fixed everyone with a serious gaze and declared that the warning had to be taken seriously. Kane sensed that one of the magic wolves had escaped and was already racing toward the town. He realized there was no time to hesitate because the beast had to be caught before disaster struck. He ordered everyone to head toward the town without delay. He turned toward the distant town and urged everyone to leave immediately. He stopped them for a brief moment and cast high healing over the injured people. Warm light restored their wounds, and the villagers gasped in astonishment at the miracle. Kane warned everyone not to push themselves. He reminded everyone that proper rest and plenty of water should mostly fix the injuries. He promised another checkup later if anything still felt wrong. The villagers waved Kane goodbye. The villagers realized Kane had been an unbelievably good person. They admitted people could not truly judge others by appearances. They even reflected that Kane's face had looked scarier than the demon wolves. Fio continued chasing after Kane while the villagers watched in surprise. Toka noticed Fio running after Kane and immediately called for her to stop. She urged Fio to come back at once. Kane had not returned, yet as Fio spread both arms before the demon wolf and refused to move, while Toka stood behind her in alarm. Fio fixed a fierce stare on the demon wolf as fear pressed against her heart, yet her resolve never wavered. Toka looked toward the people and hoped someone could do something, while another voice rejected that desperate hope because the enemy was a demon wolf. The frightened voice urged Fio to run while she refused and held her ground because running away was never an option for her. Fio declared that fear did not exist because she was Papa's girl. The demon wolf bared its fangs before her while Toka trembled behind her. Even so, Fio refused to retreat and protected the place where Kane would return. She remembered that a wish for Papa and Mama had always lived inside her heart. People told her that she was a foundling and that no one knew who her parents were. She had always felt jealous of happy families, yet she believed that one day Papa and Mama would come to bring her home. That dream became the one and only dream that she never abandoned. In the end, her parent never came. Fio kept waiting with a lonely heart, yet no one ever reached out to her. Every day became filled with pain and misery and tears. She was called the Demon King's daughter and was taken to a strange place where suffering became part of every day. At some point, her dream changed. The hope of meeting Papa and Mama disappeared, and the only wish that remained was for those painful days to finally end. When those hellish days finally ended, she found someone she could truly call Papa. Kane granted the dream that had once seemed impossible and became the most precious person in Fio's whole world. She wanted to become strong and kind just like Papa. She believed Papa would never abandon this child. The people who watched could only stare in shock as she stepped forward without hesitation. She believed that she was not the Demon King's daughter. She believed that she was Papa's girl. That belief became the strength that carried her forward without fear. She resolved that she would absolutely save this child. She called the wolf Mr. Wolf and wished for the wolf to be burned to a crisp. Fio rushed forward without hesitation and released the blazing flames toward the demon wolf. The energy struck the demon wolf with overwhelming force. Fio watched the result in silence while Toka stood frozen with disbelief. The people nearby could only stare as they witnessed the power that Fio had unleashed. Fio and the people came into view beneath him as he landed without delay. Kane arrived at the perfect time. Fio happily called Papa as Kane called her. Fio proudly declared that she had beaten the wolf. Kane answered that he had already seen everything. She asked with a bright smile if she had done a great job and if she had been a good girl. Kane decided to find out and called Fio an idiot. She cried out in surprise as Kane knocked her lightly on the head. Kane placed his hand on Fio's head as Fio wondered why. Kane reminded Fio that waiting had been the promise because the situation was dangerous. She understood that helping people was important. Kane explained that doing reckless things was absolutely not acceptable. Kane admitted that if something had happened to her, then Kane would never forgive himself no matter how much regret remained. She quietly called Papa as she listened to every word. Kane admitted that Fio had technically reached the place before the wolf attacked. She praised him for helping people and admitted that he had done a great job. Kane had been watching the whole time and had been ready to step in if necessary. Toka rushed over and called for them. She asked if both of them were hurt. Kane answered that nothing was wrong. He confirmed that there was no sign of any more demon wolves and that the youth group would be back soon. The villagers realized that Kane was the helper Toka had told them about. They thanked Kane and praised Fio as an amazing daughter. They insisted that the kindness had to be repaid somehow. Kane told everyone not to worry about it. He admitted that a little help was needed since the villagers had the manpower. He explained that helping would be more than enough as thanks. Toka wondered what Kane had in mind while the others waited for the answer. Kane prayed so the demon wolves could sleep peacefully. Fio asked what Papa was doing. She wondered why Papa was praying even though the demon wolves had been bad wolves. Kane explained that the demon wolves had attacked the carriage to survive. He reminded her that she also ate eggs and meat. Kane explained that it was the same thing. Fio asked if she had beaten a good wolf. Kane explained that it was not about good or bad. He explained that it was simply what living things needed to do in order to keep living. Kane told Fio that her power was truly incredible. He reminded her to think carefully whenever that power was used. He explained that taking lives without a good reason was the one thing that must never be done. Fio apologized to Mr. Wolf. She promised that the lesson would be remembered and that every word would be considered carefully. Kane quietly stayed beside her as the apology reached the silent grave. Kane silently thought that the display had still been unbelievable. They realized that the lightning magic had carried the force of a mid-tier spell. They admitted that even the elite magic academy in the capital had very few people capable of using such magic. The people reflected that perhaps the story about the Demon King's daughter had never been complete nonsense after all. Kane apologized for dragging the mayor into the situation and asked the mayor to help as well. The mayor answered that there was no need to apologize because this was nothing. Toka quietly watched the exchange while waiting for what would happen next. The mayor admitted that everyone truly owed Kane a great debt this time. The mayor knew those words were rude to a benefactor, but still wished to ask something. Kane listened as the mayor hesitated before continuing. They realized that Kane was the so-called scum sage everyone had been talking about. The mayor carefully addressed Kane. The villagers recognized the name Lord Kane Redrum. The villagers realized that Kane was the scum sage. They remembered the wanted posters received a few days ago. They believed Kane was the one who had recently been banished from the royal capital. They noticed that Kane's face and the scars matched perfectly. Kane realized that lying would only be exposed. He admitted that the rumors were true and confirmed that he was Kane Redrum. The mayor quietly accepted the answer because the truth had already been understood. Fio insisted that Papa was not a bad person. Toka agreed that nothing was like the rumors. Kane gently reassured Fio and Toka that everything was all right. He told the mayor not to worry because he would never come into town again. The mayor answered that the reason was understood. The mayor believed Kane had fled the royal capital with a young child. He could only imagine how difficult Kane's situation had become. Kane looked confused because he had only heard rumors about the great city. The mayor described the royal capital as a true den of monsters and demons. He explained that nobles fought for power every day and every night. He revealed that plots and assassinations were as common as breathing. He concluded that Kane must have been protecting a hidden heir whose life had become the target of countless enemies. The mayor believed Kane had accepted a false crime and escaped the royal capital to protect that child. Kane stood speechless while Fio quietly listened beside Kane. The mayor explained that everything now made sense because that was why Kane had looked like a parent raising a child. He wondered if everyone was seriously saying those words with a straight face. He admitted that people truly called Kane the scum sage. The mayor declared that everyone had watched Kane praying at the wolves' graves. The mayor could not believe that someone who mourned the dead like that could ever be a villain. The villagers chose to believe in Lord Kane. Kane stood silent as those words reached the heart. Fio happily admitted that the reason was still hard to understand, but she knew Papa was a good person now. Kane answered that the result was good. She smiled brightly because all of it had happened thanks to her. Kane realized that without Fio, he would never have come to this town. He understood that no one in this town would have ever understood Kane without her. Fio smiled with innocent happiness while bringing warmth into Kane's heart. He looked at her and believed that maybe she was Kane's very own goddess of good fortune. The villagers happily announced that everyone would hold a feast that night. Everyone declared that the celebration would honor Lord Kane who had saved the town. Cheers rose from every direction while Kane and Fio found themselves surrounded by grateful smiles. Inside the military office of the Grantial Kingdom, Hugel noticed that the long-awaited return had finally come. Hugel remarked that the return had taken an unusually long time. The woman answered with a quiet confirmation. The woman offered an apology because the mission had lasted longer than expected. She explained that the target this time had been the Sage Kane. She revealed that every movement had to be investigated with great care, so Kane would never notice the surveillance. Hugel praised the mission and assigned the woman to the next task. The woman accepted the order without hesitation. After watching the woman leave, Hugel admitted that the woman was as unsociable as ever. The other man remarked that the woman was still an excellent spy. Hugel agreed because he knew the woman very well. He grew frustrated because the Sage Kane had not only ruined the plan, but had also interfered with the slave trading business. Another official admitted that the disturbance at Castle Drawing and Lord Bernstein's curiosity had become a complete disaster. Hugel admitted that he was not the type of person who would simply sit back and accept everything without resistance. He decided to send the Demon King's daughter after Cain. Hugel believed that even the sage Cain would never escape unharmed after facing the Demon King's daughter. He burst into laughter while declaring that Cain would definitely be eliminated. He vowed that Cain should wait because Cain's head would become his prize. The townspeople happily called out to Lord Cain and warmly welcomed Cain with cheerful smiles. A woman thanked Cain for repairing the torn clothes the other day. Another villager thanked him for helping with deliveries. Cain humbly replied that those things were nothing worth mentioning. A woman invited Cain to visit the shop because an extra serving would be prepared. He admitted that taking a child into a bar felt a little questionable. Theo firmly declared that Cain belonged to her and no one could take him away. The nearby woman could only react with quiet surprise. Theo hugged Cain with complete satisfaction while happily clinging to Cain without any intention of letting go. Cain apologized to Theo and offered sweets in exchange for forgiveness. Theo quickly forgave after receiving the sweets. He thanked her and invited her to thank the woman as well. The woman replied that no apology was needed because sharing good food was already enough. The women watched Cain and Theo together with warm smiles. They admired the sight of a handsome young man beside a little girl and believed they made a wonderful pair. One woman admitted that the feeling in her heart had not fluttered like this since the days of her first love. A villager arrived with fresh food and explained that the gifts were meant to thank Cain for treating the injured back to health the other day. Another villager eagerly added vegetables. More food followed as everyone continued adding one gift after another until Cain could only accept their overflowing kindness. Toka smiled as Toka remarked that Cain had truly become popular throughout the town. Cain admitted that only a week had passed since the demon wolf incident. Cain still could not fully understand how everything had changed so quickly. Toka believed the mayor and the other townspeople deserved the credit because they had shared Cain's deeds with everyone. The mayor proudly told the gathered people that Cain was the savior of the town, and the story continued spreading from place to place. Toka explained that Cain's reputation had spread beyond the town. She revealed that people everywhere had begun speaking about the one who saved the town. Cain asked what Toka meant. Toka revealed that a newspaper reporter had visited the other day and asked many questions about Cain. The reporter wanted to know what kind of person he was. Cain immediately realized that the press had already discovered the place where Cain was hiding. He worried that the situation could bring trouble to the town. Toka reassured Cain that nothing had appeared in the newspaper, even though quite some time had passed since the reporter's visit. She believed everything would be fine. Toka believed the reporter was simply the careful type who always conducted proper research. Cain then remembered Cordelia mentioning that the king kept a personal spy. Cain also remembered that the spy worked directly for the general and quietly accepted that possibility. Cain realized there was no point staying on guard while watching Theo enjoy the meal with such innocent delight. She happily enjoyed every bite and praised the food as delicious. He reminded she that swallowing food before talking was proper manners. Theo obediently continued eating first before speaking. Toka noticed that Theo loved sweet food. Toka happily revealed that new ice cream had just arrived and invited Theo to try some. Theo admired the colorful dessert and praised it for looking beautiful while believing it must be sweet, cold, and delicious. She eagerly asked Cain for permission because she wanted to try the ice cream. Cain agreed on the condition that Theo would brush teeth after returning home. Toka smiled brightly and asked both of them to wait for a short while before preparing the treat. Cain noticed that everyone kept giving Theo tasty food, and she could barely carry everything anymore. She happily admitted that Papa's cookies were still the favorite food of all. Cain quietly repeated the word Papa in thoughts. He remembered that pretending to be her father was only supposed to be an act. Since then she had kept calling Cain with Papa. Cain realized that Theo should be seated down and everything should be explained properly at least once. Cain gently called her because something important needed to be told to her. Cain revealed the truth. Cain admitted that the original plan was to send Theo to another family. Cain explained that the first intention was to find her real parents, or at least a foster family. Cain believed that staying with a scum sage like Cain would only bring harm to her. Theo immediately pleaded that she did not want to go anywhere else and only wanted to stay with Papa. She broke into tears and cried that everyone knew Papa was Theo's only family. She begged Cain not to leave Theo behind and cried out in despair. Kane admitted that the feelings were the same. Fio looked at Kane in confusion while trying to understand those words. He realized that letting Fio go someday had always been the plan. Before he even noticed, Fio had already become someone truly irreplaceable. He wished to keep hearing Fio call Kane Papa. He wished to wake every morning and find Fio sleeping peacefully beside him because that sight always brought comfort. He wished to give Fio as much happiness as possible. He finally understood that those feelings were without doubt the love of a father. Kane gently asked whether Fio would accept Kane as a real father if she was willing. Kane quietly waited for her answer with hope. Fio immediately accepted with all the happiness in the heart. She rushed into Kane's embrace while joy overflowed without restraint. She declared that Papa was her papa and held Kane tightly without wanting to let go. Kane softly expressed gratitude while embracing Fio with warmth. Kane promised that the search for her real parents would never be abandoned. Kane believed that one day both of them would find her real parents together. Fio happily accepted that promise. Kane quietly wondered whether the real parent might be the demon king that he had killed. A few days earlier, Kane received the investigation report about her that had been requested. The report revealed that there was a possibility Fio was truly the demon king's daughter. Kane fell silent after hearing that possibility. Kane asked why that conclusion was reached. Cordelia explained that many monsters had gathered around the facility when Fio awakened magic. Cordelia explained that different species gathering in the same place at the same time was not a normal event. She concluded that such a thing could only happen if someone nearby could freely command monsters. She identified that person as the Demon King. Kane wondered whether the monsters had been drawn to Fio. Cordelia explained that it had most likely happened unconsciously. After Fio came to Kane, the monsters around the facility disappeared. Kane then questioned why the monsters were no longer coming. Kane silently hoped that the reason was simply because Fio had learned how to use that power. Cordelia explained that after the demon wolf incident, Fio learned to control magic. At the same time, monster sightings nearby suddenly stopped. Cordelia concluded that there was still no certainty that Fio was the Demon King's daughter. The report also admitted that there was no proof to deny that possibility. Cordelia ended because that was all it contained. Kane quietly accepted every detail while remaining deep in thought. Kane accepted that Fio might truly be the Demon King's daughter. He also decided that truth no longer mattered. He looked at her happy smile and vowed that no matter what happened, Kane would protect her. Kane also vowed to make absolutely sure she would always be happy. Toka returned with the ice cream that had been ordered and thanked Kane for waiting. Fio happily admired the ice cream with sparkling excitement and declared that this was ice cream. She thanked Toka and Kane. She also wished Kane would enjoy it too. Toka warmly encouraged both of them to take time and enjoy it. He suddenly noticed a presence and quietly turned toward the source. Kane remained silent while carefully watching. She looked at Kane with curiosity while holding the ice cream. Kane opened the door and quietly called for the visitor to come out. Someone hidden behind the door let out a startled cry. Unknown girl entered with nervous steps while facing Kane. Fio recognized Maria as the same girl from before. Toka welcomed Maria with a warm greeting. Maria quietly returned the greeting with a simple hello. Kane asked whether Toka knew Maria. Toka explained that Maria often helped with deliveries. She kindly asked what Maria needed today. Maria hesitated before speaking and quietly gathered the courage to answer. Maria bowed deeply before Fio and thanked Fio for saving Maria before. Fio looked on with surprise and quietly wondered what had happened. Maria also thanked Kane after hearing from everyone in town that Kane had driven away the wolves. He accepted the gratitude and explained that there was no need to worry because Kane had grown used to people running away in fear before. Maria also apologized for running away from Kane that day. Toka suddenly remembered there was something that needed to be asked of Maria. Toka asked where Maria had been trying to go on the day the demon wolf attacked. Maria froze in surprise when the question reached Maria. Silence settled over everyone as Maria struggled to answer. Toka reminded Maria that the delivery that day had only been inside the town. Toka explained that since the demon wolves started appearing, nobody had requested deliveries outside the town. Toka then asked whether that was correct. Maria quietly admitted that it was true. Toka revealed that Maria had been trying to reach the mountain that day. Kane asked what was on the mountain. Maria quietly admitted that the destination had been for medicine ingredients. Maria explained that Maria's mother was sick. She explained that a special medicine for the illness could be found on the mountain beyond the cliffs. She also admitted that the climb was difficult even for an adult, which made the medicine hard to obtain. Kane quietly understood the situation and asked what kind of illness Maria's mother had. Maria revealed that the illness was severe petrification disease. Kane admitted that even Kane could not cure that disease. Theo looked at Kane in surprise and wondered whether even Kane's magic could not heal it. Kane explained that petrification disease was basically a poison. Kane also explained that healing magic which healed wounds and fatigue could not cure it. Maria explained that they were only buying time with medicine that slowed the disease. Maria also gratefully explained that Toka sold the medicine at a very low price. Maria knew that once the petrification reached Maria's mother's heart, her life would come to an end. Maria explained that Maria's father had died years ago. Maria revealed that Maria's mother had raised Maria alone ever since. Maria also explained that after becoming sick, Maria's mother had remained bedridden. Maria's mother always claimed to be fine, even though Maria could see the suffering growing worse every day. Because of that, Maria revealed that Maria wanted to gather the medicine ingredients. Kane decided that the plans for tomorrow were now settled. Theo happily agreed and answered that Kane was right. He looked at Maria with quiet resolve while Theo stood beside Kane and waited for what would happen next. Kane declared that he was going out by himself, while Theo insisted that they were going out together and that Kane was Papa. Kane paused in confusion while Theo also stopped and wondered what was happening. Maria realized that Kane was going to the mountain to look for the medicine ingredients, and the thought left her speechless. Kane believed that helping someone in trouble was only natural and wondered why Maria would question that choice. Theo wanted Maria's mother to get better too, and reminded Kane that the last time had already taught him a lesson. Kane believed bringing Theo along would only create another reckless situation if attention slipped from her. Kane also believed a mountain with few people would become the best chance to witness how Theo used her power. Theo welcomed the decision with bright happiness after Kane finally allowed her to come along. Theo asked them to wait because Maria believed the illness affecting Maria's mother would surely be cured. Maria offered heartfelt thanks to them. Theo accepted the gratitude with joy, while Kane quietly accepted the words. Toka promised to prepare a map for the journey because it would help. Kane accepted the offer because the map would become useful for the search ahead. Toka happily introduced picnic clothes for children and water bottles. She proudly revealed that many really cute ones were available. Kane quietly admitted that she possessed a frightening sense for business. She gently wondered whether Kane truly had no need for those items. Kane reluctantly admitted that buying those items would mean taking everything Toka had prepared. She warmly expressed gratitude for the purchase and sincerely thanked Kane for buying the items. The reporter secretly wondered whether Kane had truly managed to tame the Demon King's daughter. The reporter carefully observed the house while recording every detail in silence. The reporter recalled catching a glimpse inside when the door opened a moment earlier. The sight revealed Sage Kane and the Demon King's daughter together and convinced the reporter that the information was real. The reporter believed that if the spy's report was true, then the situation could become extremely serious. The reporter became determined to see Kane dead and vowed that Sage Kane would soon face the consequences. Hugel believed Kane and the Demon King's daughter should have already destroyed each other by now. The man beside him agreed that it would not have been strange if Kane had at least lost an arm. The other man reflected that relying on the Oni god had crossed his mind once. The listener questioned whether that would truly become the final option. Lord Hugel dismissed the concern because if the Oni god ever discovered the slave trade, the punishment would never be light. The other man admitted that life held value as well. Hugel declared that the report had greater importance and ordered the report to be delivered without delay. Lord Hugel also intended to witness how much destruction had been left behind. The other man laughed softly and regarded Lord Hugel as a truly wicked man. Kane's attendant looked over the report with quiet confidence and decided to examine it in detail. The official waited nearby until Lord Hugel suddenly looked up in confusion after reading the report and failed to understand what had appeared before him. The attendant stared at the report in shock as fear spread across his face, while Lord Hugel demanded to know what had happened. The attendant struggled to speak and respectfully asked permission to deliver the report before revealing that Kane Redrum had. Kane had truly tamed the Demon King's daughter, and the report declared that both were living together peacefully as a beloved good man and his child in the nearby town. Hugel and the attendant stood in heavy silence, while a stunned reaction escaped as neither could accept the truth before them. The investigator revealed that the unbelievable report had been verified after taking the disguise of a reporter and asking the townspeople about Sage Kane. A townsman remembered Kane as the savior who rescued the town. Another person remembered Kane as a tragic hero who had been exiled from the capital under false accusations. Someone else remembered Kane as a loving father who cared deeply for Fio. The investigator heard praise about Kane's good cooking, and even heard that many people would gladly let Kane hold their children, while every answer matched the contents of the report. The investigator struggled to believe that Sage Kane could truly be such a good person. Another thought rejected everything and insisted that Kane was still the scum sage. The lingering suspicion refused to disappear as another possibility formed that keeping the Demon King's daughter beside him had to be part of some hidden scheme. Using the Demon King's daughter, whom Kane had won over, became the perfect tool for revenge against the kingdom that had exiled him. The investigator imagined that hidden plan unfolding beneath the dark shadow of the capital. He remained determined to uncover the truth and became certain that Vice Captain General would expose Kane's real face. The investigator watched Kane and Fio return home together and accepted that certainty had not yet been reached. The desire to know the complete truth only grew stronger. The story continues as Kane steps outside with a cheerful smile as he enjoys the pleasant weather and remarks that it is a great day. He checks the lunch bags he has prepared and makes sure nothing has been forgotten before getting ready to leave. Kane calls out for Fio and tells her that it is time to go. His voice carries across the house as he waits for her to come outside. Fio quickly gets ready after hearing Kane call her. She answers that she is coming while hurrying toward him. Kane waits outside the house with the lunches prepared for their outing. Fio soon runs toward him as they prepare to leave together. Fio proudly shows off her new outfit and happily asks Kane how she looks. Her cheerful pose leaves Kane completely overwhelmed by how cute his daughter looks. He covers his face and cries out that she is far too adorable. Fio becomes embarrassed by his reaction and complains that Kane has been saying the same thing since yesterday. Kane suddenly notices something strange while watching Fio smile. Even her innocent smile feels unbearably adorable to him, and he struggles to contain his reaction. A strange presence then catches Kane's attention. His expression changes as he senses that someone may be watching them. Kane notices that the people watching them are moving suspiciously. Their actions are too obvious for ordinary townspeople. He wonders who could be watching them. He wonders if they could be the reporter Toka mentioned. He considers that they might be Hugel's spies. The strange presence makes him suspicious. However, a real spy would not make their presence so obvious. He realizes that the watchers are clearly trying to get a close look at them. He decides not to approach them. He thinks it is better to ignore them and continue normally. Kane raises his fist and excitedly tells Fio that they are heading to the mountain to gather medicine ingredients for Maria's mother. Fio happily raises her hand and agrees to go with him. They through the mountain while enjoying their journey together. The watcher notices Kane and Fio heading toward the mountain. The situation looks bad, and the unexpected trip makes the watcher worry. The watcher came all the way to Kane's house to dig up his dark side. The faint groans that were heard earlier also seemed suspicious. The sight of the laughing Demon King's daughter together with Kane only made the situation look worse. Kane was lying on the ground while Fio stood nearby. Everything looked like a strange scene that could not be explained easily. The watcher sees Kane lying on the ground with Fio nearby. No matter how it looks, he decides that it must have been combat training. The watcher becomes convinced that Kane's friendly face is only a lie. He believes Kane is raising the Demon King's daughter as a living weapon. Kane remains completely unaware of the suspicion around him. He has simply collapsed from being overwhelmed by Fio's cuteness. The plan had been to have the two of them take each other out. But at this rate, they would end up creating the strongest threat in the world. If that happened, then someday everyone could be wiped out too. The decision was not to act yet. The time was still not right. The watcher planned to track Kane down and uncover his weak point. No matter what happened, the goal was to find a way to bring Sage Kane down. A warning was prepared for Kane as the watcher vowed that Sage Kane would soon have to face the consequences. Fio happily walked through the forest while singing. He reminds her to be careful while Fio happily promises to stay close. Kane warns Fio not to wander too far because vicious animals and wild creatures live in the mountains. Fio points out that she will be fine because she has magic. Her confidence makes Kane worry that she may become careless. Kane warns that even if Fio can panic, her magic might go out of control. In the worst case, she could start a forest fire. Fio confidently believes that nothing can scare her because she has magic. Her cheerful attitude shows how little experience she has with controlling it. Kane reminds Fio that she still does not have enough experience. Even if she can control her magic, now she still cannot let her guard down. No matter how strong the magic power is, it can cause accidents if it is not used correctly. In the worst case, the magic could even hurt the person using it. Kane decides that today is a good chance to practice. He tells Fio that they will practice lots of magic. Fio agrees to follow the lesson. She understands that magic is fine when it is used properly, but only when there is no danger. He decides that they will first start with learning a different spell. He explains that there are many kinds of magic, such as the 5 great elemental spells that can control fire and water, as well as healing magic. Kane suddenly notices something nearby. He wonders what it is and realizes that something interesting is over there. Kane notices the tall mountain ahead and decides to use it for magic practice. The steep rock face rises high above them as they prepare to climb. Kane tells Fio that they are going to climb the mountain using magic. Fio is shocked by the idea and wonders if Kane really expects them to climb it that way. Kane explains that there are 2 ways to climb the mountain. One way is to fly through the air. The other way is still left for Fio to discover. Fio looks toward the difficult mountain while Kane prepares to show her the other method. Kane demonstrates the first method by using sheer strength to launch himself upward along the mountain. Fio watches in surprise as Kane suddenly flies upward. She can only cry out in shock while trying to understand what just happened. Fio remains below and watches Kane climb the mountain with a confused expression. He plants his hand against the rock and pushes off with force. Kane continues climbing the steep rock face by pushing himself upward with powerful movements. His cape follows behind as he quickly gains height. Kane looks back at Fio and calmly explains that the technique works like that. Fio watches the technique and lets out a small surprised "oh" as she realizes what Kane has done. Fio becomes excited by Kane's skill and praises him as an awesome papa. She thinks the technique was really cool and looks eager to learn it herself. Kane notices her excitement and agrees to teach her. Fio wants to go whoosh and fly through the air too. Kane tells her that it is easy enough and promises to teach her. Kane introduces another useful spell for Fio. The spell increases her defense so minor injuries can be shrugged off. He considers it perfect for Fio because she is always charging in to help people. Fio happily prepares to learn the spell while imagining herself using it without getting hurt. Kane tells Fio that the first step is to learn the spell incantation. He asks her to repeat after him. Fio happily agrees and promises to give it a try. He raises his hand and begins the spell with the word strength. The spell suddenly rises upward with great force. He watches the magic with a puzzled expression as he realizes something unusual has happened. He looks at the strange result and wonders what is happening. The magic has produced a much stronger effect than expected. Fio uses the spell and suddenly shoots upward with great force. She becomes thrilled by the result and proudly declares that it is amazing because she really climbed the mountain. She continues enjoying the height and happily celebrates being so high up. Kane watches her rise higher than expected and realizes that the spell has worked far too well. He worries that Fio may end up getting herself into trouble. Kane watches Fio climb higher and reminds her to have fun but stay careful if there is trouble. Fio happily promises to be careful before continuing upward. Kane cannot believe that Fio picked up the spell so fast. It was supposed to be a pretty tricky spell, and he realizes she is learning faster than expected. Kane decides that Fio should start getting real combat experience soon. If only a suitable opponent would show up, then the practice could become more useful. Fio reaches the mountain area and happily announces that they are there. He looks around and notices that there should be some herbs growing nearby. He begins searching for the ingredients they came to collect. He suddenly notices something nearby and quietly reacts with a puzzled sound. A group of woodcutters walks through the mountain carrying their tools. They appear to be working in the area, while Kane and Fio continue their search nearby. One of the woodcutters notices him and Fio and becomes startled. He wonders who they are and asks if they are a group of woodcutters. He looks toward the group and wonders why they are up on a cliff like this. He quickly raises his hands and explains that there is no need to worry because they are not there to interfere with the woodcutter's work. He then notices something unusual about the group. The mountain camp is in complete disarray with crates and barrels scattered across the ground. The place looks like it has been abandoned after a struggle. Several men sit on the ground while the woodcutters stand nearby. Their situation makes it clear that something is wrong with the group. Kane looks at the men with suspicion and asks if they are really bandits. One of the men boldly challenges him by asking what will happen if they are. He realizes what has happened and understands that the mountain has become a perfect hideout for scum because no one comes here. The situation finally makes sense to him. He points out the truth to Fio and tells her that the men are bandits. Fio immediately condemns them as bad people and considers their actions unforgivable. The woodcutter warns the others to watch carefully and tells them not to worry about what is about to happen. Another man questions what the woodcutter is mumbling about over there. The woodcutter charges forward with the others, but suddenly freezes when Kane and Fio appear ahead. The unexpected sight stops his advance as his body stiffens in shock. Kane calmly looks toward the group and explains that what they just witnessed was the example. Kane warns Fio to listen carefully as they are catching everyone alive. No one is allowed to be killed, and she must understand the order. She happily treats the task as easy and declares that dealing with she and Papa is a piece of cake. The woodcutter sees Kane and Fio and greets them with a nervous hi as he realizes they are nearby. Fio looks at the strange situation and wonders what is wrong with this brat as the man suddenly reacts with panic. The man struggles to stop himself as a loud cry escapes him. His body shakes while he tries to endure the pain and confusion. A small flower stands quietly in the grass while the disturbance continues nearby. The townspeople warmly thank Kane for saving them. Their gratitude is clear as they appreciate the help they received. Kane explains that the group was passing near the mountain with their caravan when the bandits caught them. He assures the townspeople not to worry about it. One man explains that the bandits were handed over to the nearby knights and presents the reward money to him. The payment is offered as thanks for the trouble. Kane accepts the reward with a simple acknowledgement and thanks the man for the payment. The man then offers Kane a share of the money and places it into his hands. The unexpected payment leaves Kane surprised by their generosity. Another man insists that they could not possibly let Kane go without compensation. The bandits ruined their merchandise, and the money is needed to cover their losses. Kane reassures the townspeople that everything is fine. He explains that helping people gave him useful experience, and that there was nothing to regret. Fio happily calls out to Papa as she notices him nearby. The townspeople thank Kane again for helping them, and Fio watches the exchange with a bright smile. Kane notices that Maria-chan has already gone to see Maria. Fio confirms that she has gone to meet her. Kane wonders why Fio is still outside because she is supposed to stay in bed, that he learns that Maria's mother wants to meet Papa. Ein is shocked when he realizes that Maria's mother is already outside. The unexpected situation leaves him shouting in disbelief that Fio must be joking. Kane opens the door and finds Katlia waiting outside with Fio beside her. Katlia sits in a wheelchair while Maria stands beside her. The two wait quietly as Kane approaches them. Katlia looks toward Kane with a gentle smile and expresses her gratitude. She thanks Kane deeply for everything he has done for her. Kane asks how Katlia is feeling. She replies that her condition is much better and gives all thanks to Kane for his help. Katlia feels relieved that there is no longer any need to keep making her daughter suffer. Her heart feels lighter knowing that her daughter can finally live without carrying the same worry. Kane gently reminds Katlia that her recovery is good news, but she should not push herself too hard. Maria bows deeply and thanks Kane for saving her mother. Her gratitude is sincere as she happily expresses how much the rescue means to her. Fio smiles warmly and assures Maria that there is no need to thank them. Kane laughs and explains that saving people is part of the big ambition shared by him and Papa. Katlia listens to Kane and Fio while the word ambition catches her attention. Kane looks toward Fio and speaks of the future with confidence. Someday the two of them are going to help people in trouble all over the world. Fio responds with an eager yeah, and Kane follows with a warm question asking if that is right for Fio as well. Katlia listens to their ambition and reacts with genuine admiration. Wow is all that escapes her before she praises it as a wonderful ambition. Another voice adds that if it is Kane then success feels certain and there is no doubt that he can do it. The The people gathered nearby join in with their support and promise that they will be cheering Kane on too. The lively exchange leaves Kane facing the group with a thoughtful expression. The reporter is finally heading home. After following them for so long, the reporter now turns away and prepares to leave the area without making another attempt to approach them. Kane watches the reporter depart and reflects that they have been tailing the group non-stop, but have never once tried to talk to him. If the reporter saw how Kane helped people today, then surely the reporter would clear his name. He hopes they get back safe and asks if everything will be all right as the evening sky stretches above them. A quiet room waits inside a grand building. A lone figure stands before the desk while the spacious chamber remains still and orderly. Hugo grows irritated by the delay and curses the damned drunk for taking forever. His impatience deepens as he wonders where the man is loafing around and why he has not returned yet. Kane has been noticed during the undercover investigation. The man fears that Kane discovered him drinking while investigating and took him out before the situation could become worse. The possibility leaves the man deeply worried. If Kane finds out about the plans, then the man fears that he will be next. The door stands open as the delayed arrival reaches the room. The long wait is over, and the drunk is finally here. The injured man stumbles into the room in a battered state as Lord Hugo notices him struggling to stand. His clothes are torn and stained from whatever happened before his arrival. The sudden arrival of someone in such a condition makes it clear that something has gone terribly wrong. The injured man struggles to remain conscious and tries to explain what happened. With his strength fading, he manages to warn Lord Hugo that something terrible has happened to him. Kane has tamed the Demon King's daughter. He plans to seize not just this country, but the whole world. Hugo stares in shock as the claim reaches him. He demands to know what was just said. Kane has been doing combat training with the Demon King's daughter. He was just weakening his own daughter's cute image. He silenced the woodcutters who saw the training in the mountains. The whole situation made his actions seem even more extreme. Hugo could not accept what had happened. To top it off, Kane had declared in the middle of town that the whole world would be taken together. Hugo felt that Kane had gone too far to be handled cleanly. The man demanded to know if those injuries were Kane's doing. The answer came that those injuries were from the thugs he bribed. They had learned that the group had received money from Kane, so the man had tried to buy them off. The man offered double what Kane had given them. He demanded everything about Kane's movements in detail. Several men stood nearby and listened to the conversation. The man demanded to know what was being planned to do to him. Another man rejected the idea of selling out that guy for money and insisted that there was no way they would do it. The plan was seen as the first step in his plan for world domination. Hugo could only fear the situation. Kane had probably brainwashed the entire town by now. It was a dreadful situation. Hugo looked troubled as he considered the situation. It looked like there was really no choice but to rely on the one God. Then another thought came to him, and he decided there was an even better idea. The plan was to bring in that woman. The suggestion left the others shocked as they questioned whether Hugo could really mean that. Hugo gave the order with confidence. At this point, they would have them wiped out quietly. The order was understood, and the subordinate accepted it as Lord Hugo commanded. The woman being dragged along could only protest and question why Hugo wanted her involved too. The Adventurers Guild was crowded with adventurers gathering inside the busy hall. A group of adventurers gathered around the table as food and drinks were brought over. The guild was filled with the usual activity of people preparing for their work. The nearby adventurers continued their conversation while the busy guild carried on around them. Theo looked around the crowded hall and noticed there were so many different people there. Kane observed the busy guild while Theo realized that the nearby dungeon had just opened back up. This was when the guild would get the busiest. Theo points out the job board and notes that it is where they post jobs for adventurers. Kane considers taking a job himself if something good appears, that he also thinks Theo should not have to feel like she has to work without him. Theo insists that she will work too because she promised to help Papa. He laughs and agrees that if it is something they can do together, then it is fine. Theo happily notices a request and calls out that it is a boss subjugation request. He turns toward it and notices that it is for Frozen Soul Pit. He reacts with a simple HM as he looks over the request. A reward of that good coins is above the usual rate. The request catches Kane's attention as he looks over the posted papers and wonders whether anyone around can handle a job like that. The boss there is ranked B right. The request is to gather materials from the boss monster. The request is for Frozen Soul Pit. That must be the famous dungeon. Fio remembers that Tura mentioned it before. The request is also for the materials needed from the boss monster. The reason for the request is to make medicine for a sick daughter. Kane quietly realizes that the situation is like Maria's mother's situation, while Fio gives a small laugh and repeats her soft laughter. Fio uses her magic to take the quest from the quest board and make it fly toward her. A sudden commotion breaks out nearby as the quest flies through the air. Fio cheerfully holds up the request and declares that in that case Fio and Papa are going to beat that boss. Someone nearby reacts with a confused huh as the situation unfolds. Kane looks toward her with confidence and assures that if it is Papa and Fio, then this will be a piece of cake. Kane apologizes to Fio and explains that this time he is going alone. Fio reacts in shock because Kane took her with him to the mountain before. Fio protests that she needs a permit to enter a dungeon. Kane explains that once Fio passes the guild's exam and gets an adventurer's license, she will be allowed in. However, Fio has to be at least 15 to take the exam. Kane then tells Fio that she is staying at Tuka's place this time. Fio complains that only B-rank adults get all the fun. Kane thinks it is good that Fio is so curious, but he needs a way to make her accept it. Even with the strength she got from growing up around wolves and bandits, he is still worried about her. Fio agrees to some homework and asks whether it is homework. Kane offers magic practice as the homework. Kane explains that if Fio can pull it off by the time he gets back, she will get a reward. Fio immediately reacts with surprise at the mention of a reward. He then tells Fio to stay and wait like a good girl until he returns. Kane tells Fio that it is time to go and accept that request. The girl wonders what is going on with that dad and kid. Another man wonders if he is really going into the pit alone. The bald man feels like he has seen that guy somewhere before. The man with the hat confirms that he went in. The man with glasses looks at the mirror and declares that it is time to start the operation. The canyon stretches across the path as the area around the dungeon remains quiet and empty. Kane enters the pit right on schedule and continues deeper through the rocky path. The man watching the entrance notices that Kane has already entered the pit right on schedule. The man with glasses realizes that Kane did not even notice the fake request and went straight into the trap. Now Kane is separated from the Demon King's daughter and can be taken out one at a time. The mirror shows the target as the Demon King's daughter, and the man is ordered to make sure the target is finished here. The man with glasses asks if something is wrong and whether there is some problem with the plan. The man with glasses remarks that it is rare to see Kane rattled because Kane has always completed missions without batting an eye. The man with glasses calls it a legendary clan of assassins and wonders why so much fear is shown by someone from such a lineage. The woman questions whether Kane is the descendant of the famous Nameless One and asks whether even Kane is afraid of the Demon King. The woman reminds him that Kane's clan has countless feats throughout history and that the clan once wiped out the Demon King along with his homeland. Kane finally pleads for them to stop. The man firmly warns that nobody should insult his homeland or his clan any further. He adds that even Lord Drunk will not keep his head if such insults continue. The woman realizes the danger and offers her apologies. She understands that killing this strong opponent requires more magic and better communication. Kane stands as the opponent and makes it clear that a desk man like him is no match for Kane. He adds that more importantly the man will not even make it to the end. The man calmly declares that there is already a plan and that there is no need to worry. The plan is made clear as the assassination of the Demon King's daughter will proceed. Honestly, that general had dumped a real mess of a job on him. The situation had become far more troublesome than expected. But if he was not eliminated, then both of them would be finished. He had to deal with Kane before he finished training the Demon King's daughter. A monster berserker drug had been secretly developed by the army. It had later been sealed away because it was considered too dangerous. The drug was now being used despite its danger. He could hardly believe that such a thing was actually being used. With a dark smile on his face, he declared that this was the end for Sage Kane. This dungeon would become Kane's grave. A red baboon, a vorpal bunny, and an orthros. The lineup looked dangerous enough, but something still felt off. The creatures stood together in an uneasy formation. Quite the lineup it was, but something was clearly wrong. The strange mist around the monsters caught attention. It could be some kind of pheromone from the boss. Kane stepped forward with a confident grin. Once the monsters were beaten, it would not matter anymore. His stance sharpened as he prepared to fight. If they were coming at him, then he would not be holding back. Kane released a burst of magic and shouted for a mini flare. The spell struck the target and created a sudden explosion. Fio watched the scene with interest while the other girl stood beside her. The room quickly filled with the aftermath of the spell. It did not work again. A small laugh followed as she remained unbothered and reminded Fio that there was no need to rush because there was still plenty of time. Most people tried to make a big one. Still, practicing a spell that only makes a tiny flame was pretty unusual. The small spell continued to sputter as she admitted that just making a big boom was easy. It was questioned whether using magic inside the shop was really okay. The concern faded when it was explained that Kane had put up a magic barrier for them. Fio cheerfully decided to try one more time. She urged the tiny flame to come out and gave it another attempt. The spell suddenly went out of control and caused a huge mess inside the shop. The shelves shook as the disturbance spread through the room. Fio cried out in panic and begged for it to stop while the shop girl struggled to protect herself. Fio quickly apologized and asked whether she was okay after the accident. The shop girl assured Fio that she was fine. The shop girl admitted that she was pretty sure one fireball slipped outside just now. Fio then promised to check outside. The shop was thrown into chaos as the shelves and goods were knocked over. Fio stood nearby in panic as the accident left a huge mess and caused a cry of shock from the people caught in it. Fio quickly apologized to her and expressed how sorry she was for what had happened. The injured lady had been patched up for now. The concern remained that a doctor should be called. She refused the worry and assured everyone that resting for a while would be enough. The damage had to be dealt with immediately. Fio was asked to look after the injured lady while the shop girl went to fix the roof. Fio accepted the task and confidently promised to handle it. The girl looked at Fio with concern after seeing the flame and wondered if that was the flame just now and what Fio had been doing. Fio could only apologize for the trouble. The answer came with praise for how amazing it was that someone so small could use magic at all. Fio quietly wondered if that was really true. Fio still felt troubled because even with magic she could not make small flames. The small flame continued to struggle under Fio's control. It was explained that controlling magic was hard and that this often happened with kids who had a lot of power. Fio grew worried again and wondered what would happen if someone got hurt again. The fear of another accident remained in her mind. Fio was gently reassured that everything would be all right. The girl was told that the body was probably just tensing too much. She was encouraged to close her eyes and take a deep breath. Relaxation was the key, as if preparing to fall asleep. Fio followed the guidance and tried to relax her body. The gentle instruction helped her settle down and focus on the feeling of her magic. Once she calmed down, the flame became much clearer in her mind. The image of the fire appeared more vividly than before. The small flame formed successfully in her hand. The result showed that the practice was finally starting to work. Fio focused on the sensation and gathered her magic in her hand. She called out for a mini flare and finally managed to release the spell. Fio proudly finished the spell and showed the small flame. She happily declared that she had done it and made it just the right size. The girl praised her and thought the result was wonderful. Fio thanked the girl and wondered if some kind of special magic had been used on her. The girl explained that her father had taught her that technique a long time ago. She wondered if he had taught her all sorts of techniques. The girl explained that he had drilled many different techniques into her. He had been strict, but he was also a very kind man. Fio thanked her again and became curious about her father. Fio became confused by the answer. She quietly wondered what had happened to him. The girl quietly explained that her father and mother had gone far away. Her older brother and younger sister had also left. Everyone in her family was gone, and she was the only one who remained. Fio listened to her story and asked if that meant she could not see her family anymore. The girl gave a quiet answer. She would never see them again. Fio fell silent after hearing those words. She could not find anything to say. A painful thought began to trouble Fio. If Papa ever disappeared and Fio could never see him again, then the thought of losing him would be unbearable. Fio noticed that the girl seemed troubled and asked if she was all right. She also wondered if being alone made her feel lonely. The girl reassured Fio that she was fine and had already become used to being alone. She quietly explained that she also had no reason to see her family again. She felt that she could not face them anymore after everything that had happened. She explained that her family name had been dragged through the mud. She had been forced to use the techniques passed down through generations for dirty work, even if the reason had been losing their country and having to survive alone. Her father and the others would never forgive her for what had happened. Fio became curious when she heard about dirty work. The girl remained quiet as she thought about her past. Fio hesitated before admitting that the girl already knew what she meant. Fio gently explained that doing something bad did not mean everything was hopeless. If something wrong had been done, then the person only needed to say sorry. She explained that this was what Papa always said whenever something was broken. Kane gently reminded Fio that what had been done was already finished. What mattered now was whether an apology could be given properly. Fio listened closely and understood that this was what Papa always taught her. The girl began to understand that making things right did not always require something difficult. Fio admitted that it was easy to say sorry. Fio smiled happily as she continued to believe in Papa's teaching. The girl finally understood what Fio meant. It really was such a simple thing. Fio smiled happily after being called such a good girl. She laughed softly and admitted that people told her that a lot. The girl quietly accepted that she had always known the truth. The person who destroyed her country was him. Blaming a little child like this, or trying to kill her, would be completely wrong. Fio looked toward her. She brushed it off as nothing. Fio happily thanked the lady and promised to tell her father and family that she was sorry and wanted their forgiveness. Fio cheerfully assured the lady that Papa and everyone else would surely forgive her. She believed that a sincere apology would be enough to make things right. Tuka suddenly arrived and noticed that the lady was gone. She asked where the lady had gone and wondered what had happened. Fio also became confused by Tuka's question. She looked around and could only wonder what had happened to the lady. Tuka noticed that the lady had suddenly disappeared. It seemed strange because she had only been there a moment ago. She wondered if something important had come up for her. Another thought quickly came to mind, and she wondered if the lady had simply gone home. The lady walked away while thinking about Fio's words. She hoped that the girl could really make up with her family and receive their forgiveness. Meanwhile, Kane suddenly found himself inside a dark cave. He looked around in confusion as the unfamiliar surroundings gave him no clue about what had happened. Kane reached toward the man and urgently told him to stay with him. He tried to keep the injured man awake while confusion filled his own mind. The man could barely respond. He struggled to speak as his strength continued to fade. The man slowly regained awareness and wondered where he was. Kane remained nearby while another man explained what had happened. They had just been about to defeat the boss when Kane suddenly appeared before them. A man explained that the strange incident began when someone started yelling that such things should not be happening. The person then shouted about using more serum. He admitted that he did not know what that was about, but the shouting had caused a serious problem. The man recalled that the monster noticed the noise and swallowed someone whole. The victim had panicked and pulled him out before everything went wrong. He asked if the victim remembered any of it. The man quietly admitted that she was sorry, but could not remember anything. Her memory seemed to have disappeared completely. Kane asked if she remembered nothing at all. He even asked whether she could remember her own name. Could only answer that she could not. Kane concluded that she was suffering from amnesia. He recalled that she had been swallowed by the monster and then survived after being inside its guts. He began to wonder what had happened to her before the strange incident. Confusion, and began to suspect that she had lost her memory. The man was surprised that Kane knew about the reporter. Kane explained that the reporter had been secretly shadowing him for ages lately. He had already figured out that the reporter was the only way to uncover the truth about the story. The reporter noticed an old investigation report about Kane Redrum. The document made her realize that there might be some clues about her past. Kane looked over the report and confirmed that the investigation could help. The reporter began to believe that the missing memories might be connected to the information written in the report. Kane finally understood that the man was indeed a reporter. The reporter admitted that the job was his profession and confirmed that Kane had correctly figured it out. The reporter thanked Kane and promised that the rescue would never be forgotten. Kane had saved his life, and that kindness meant a great deal to him. Kane reminded the reporter not to push himself too hard. He told him to stay safe and return to town. The reporter felt that Kane had already done so much and admitted that Kane had made a great impression on him. The reporter asked Kane to let him write about this incident in his article as well. Kane agreed but asked him to make the story look cool. Back at the house, Fio happily praised Papa for his good work. She was glad that Kane had gained another person who understood him. She considered it another job well done. Fio finished her homework and proudly showed it to Kane. She then asked where her reward was. Kane had already prepared something for her and gave her a set of colored pencils. Fio was thrilled by the gift. She happily admired the many colors and could hardly contain her excitement. She was delighted to have so many colors to use. Fio happily played with her new colored pencils while Kane stayed beside her. For both of them, it had truly been a great day. As the peaceful day came to an end, Kane quietly hoped that days like this would continue to come. The towering palace stood in the distance while the search continued without any sign of him. The royal capital was in turmoil as the soldiers searched through the city. The soldiers hurried through the corridors. No one had seen him anywhere, and his whereabouts remained unknown. The search became more urgent as the soldiers were ordered to hurry and set up the checkpoints. Allowing someone to escape like that was considered a disgrace to the kingdom. Hugo could not hide his frustration. He cursed the situation and wondered how everything had ended up like this. A wanted poster for Hugo had been spread across the city. His face was clearly shown under the word wanted. The charges listed against him included human trafficking, incitement to murder, bribery, and more. The situation had become far worse than expected. He could not understand how they had found out about the plan, but the failure had already ruined everything. The situation left Hugo with almost no way out. He could not reach the drunkard or that woman. Every possible path seemed to be closing around him. He realized that the situation might ruin him completely. There was no choice left except to rely on the Oni god. The royal capital had finally settled into a peaceful afternoon as the streets stood quiet beneath the clear sky. The familiar buildings surrounded the lively town while people went about their daily lives without fear or trouble. Inside the shop, Fio sat with Maria and focused on the work before them. The two girls stayed busy together. Fio worked happily beside Maria as they continued their little task. Maria admired her skill and praised Fio for being really good at it. Fio accepted the praise with a cheerful smile before returning the compliment and telling Maria that her work was pretty good too. Kane watched the two girls enjoying themselves and found the peaceful scene strangely comforting. With the bottle still in his hand, he smiled to himself and thought that things sure were peaceful now. Fio protested that it was unfair to be the only one drinking juice and insisted that Fio wanted some too. Maria looked toward and wondered if Adelard was really sure. Kane allowed only one bottle and told Maria to pick whichever one she liked. Kane turned his attention toward the two girls and asked what they were doing. Their little activity had caught his attention while Toka continued working behind the counter. As Kane watched the peaceful scene around the shop, he could hardly believe how much life had changed. There had been a time when Kane was feared as a scum sage, and the demon wolf had caused trouble not long ago. Kane noticed the two girls had been drawing for a while and became curious about their work. He leaned closer and asked what they were drawing after spending so much time on it. Fio happily offered to show the picture. She proudly lifted the drawing and revealed that it showed Fio and Papa together. The picture also included a bright sun and several flowers around the figures. Kane looked over the picture with a gentle smile. He saw that Fio had drawn herself and her mother as well. He praised both girls and told them that they had done a great job. Kane looked at the drawing with interest and noticed the princess among the figures. Maria explained that the princess in the drawing was a real princess. Fio happily remembered the story from her picture book. She recognized the princess because Papa had read the book to her before. She proudly explained that the princess had appeared in that story. Kane studied the picture for a moment and thought about the princess. The idea reminded him of how Princess Lilia had been acting lately. He found it amusing to think about how well the princess was doing. Kane remembered that he had not seen Princess Lily once since his banishment from the capital. Kane reminds Toka that she was entrusted with a delivery for Kane yesterday. Her words make the forgotten matter return to his mind as he turns toward her with quiet interest. Kane wonders whether the delivery was truly meant for him. The letter bears a wax seal that keeps its contents hidden and makes the delivery seem more important than an ordinary message. Kane carefully takes the envelope and studies the seal. He recognizes it as a sealing spell and realizes that only Kane can open it. The spell is unusual enough that he suspects Cudelia is the only person who could have arranged something like this. The letter has arrived safely, and the next step is to open it and discover what message has been entrusted to him. Toka notices that something seems to have come up and asks Kane if something is wrong. Kane looks toward Fio as she approaches and calls out to her with a familiar greeting. The sudden encounter draws Fio's attention, and she comes closer to see what is happening. Kane asks Fio about going on a trip together and wonders whether she would like to join him. Fio immediately understands the idea as an opportunity for fun and eagerly agrees to go. Her excitement makes the invitation feel like the beginning of a happy adventure. The journey leads them toward a vast mountain range. The distant peaks stretch across the horizon and mark the unfamiliar land that awaits them. A small shrine stands quietly among the trees as Kane and Fio arrive at the place they have been seeking. Kane recognizes the location and confirms that this is the place. Fio looks around the shrine with uncertainty and wonders if they have truly come to the right place because there appears to be nothing there. Kane assures her that the hidden presence can be felt and asks whether she can sense the magic coming from the shrine as well. Fio pauses and tries to feel the strange presence around them. The unfamiliar sensation makes her hesitate as she searches for the source of the magic. Kane steps forward and boldly announces his name as Kane Redrum. He declares that he has come by invitation and demands that the gate be opened so they can enter. The sudden movement reveals that the shrine was guarding an entrance that had been concealed from ordinary view. Fio reacts with a startled cry as the mysterious entrance opens before them. The quiet surroundings lead them toward the grand building ahead, while several women in traditional clothing gather near the entrance. More women stand nearby and watch their arrival with friendly attention. A young woman steps forward with a warm welcome and invites them to some inn. The greeting makes it clear that Kane and Fio have arrived at the place they were seeking. Fio is amazed by the hidden inn and wonders what kind of place it is. Kane explains that only people who know about it can enter. Only invited guests are allowed inside. He has heard rumors about the place before. This is his first time visiting, and he remembers hearing that the owner is an eccentric person. He decides to go inside because someone should already be waiting for them. Fio follows him toward the entrance. A single footstep landed on the gravel as Kane and Fio approached the inn. A young woman at the entrance welcomed them to Sumai Inn and explained that everyone had been expecting their arrival. Lord Hugel Galius stood before them and was formally introduced by name. The quiet hallway led Kane toward the room where his meeting was waiting. A woman in a kimono welcomed Kane and explained that his companion was already waiting inside. Kane politely asked if it was all right to enter. The woman assured him that the guest had been waiting for him. Inside the room, a young woman sat with a cup in her hands. She looked toward Kane with a gentle smile and welcomed his arrival. She had waited for a long time and was glad to finally see him well. Kane looked toward Fio and recognized the girl from the rumors. He remarked that she looked like a true princess. Fio reacted with surprise at the thought of meeting a princess. The woman sitting with the tea then introduced herself and invited Kane to learn her identity. She introduced herself as Lilamia May Granchel. She explained that she was a princess in accordance with the throne of the country and the royal order. Fio was amazed that the person they came to meet was really a princess. She asked Kane if he already knew about her royal status. He confirmed that she was indeed a real princess. Fio eagerly asked Lily how to properly greet a princess. She wanted to know the right way to show respect during their first meeting. Kane clarified that Lily was indeed a princess. The simple answer left Fio even more impressed by the royal presence before her. Lily suddenly reached for Kane and called him Kane-sama with great affection. The unexpected embrace caught him completely off guard and made him cry out in surprise. Lily happily welcomed Cudelia and was glad that he had shown up too. She reminded him that it had been a long time since they last met. Kane looked back on their reunion and acknowledged that it had been a while since he had seen her face as well. Kane tried to pull away and insisted that she get off him. His protest only made the reunion more chaotic. She complained that Kane was as cold as ever. Her words carried a familiar frustration toward his distant attitude. Kane reminded her that he already had a child now and told her to find someone else instead. Lily refused to accept that excuse and insisted that his cold attitude was exactly what made him worth winning over. Cudelia warmly greets Fio and introduces herself as the famous woman she has heard about. She also calls herself Fio's future mama, which leaves Fio surprised by the unexpected greeting. Kane quickly corrects the misunderstanding and explains that she is Cudelia's big sister. Lily then quietly asks whether she may speak now. Lily first expresses gratitude for everyone coming all this way. Fio then asks whether the letter from before was really from the princess. Lily confirms that the letter was written by her and entrusted to Cordelia. Kane questions why the usual mirror communication was not used. He points out that the mirror communication could have been intercepted. Cordelia explains that the message needed extra caution because Princess Lilia is also present this time. Lily asks Fio to confirm the name used before they get to the main topic. She reminds Fio that the name was previously mentioned. Fio assures Cordelia that everything is fine and asks to simply be called Fio. Lily then recognizes the name and begins addressing Fio directly. She suddenly bows deeply and apologizes for the misunderstanding. Fio is left startled by the sudden apology. Lily admits that the Demon King is certainly a loathsome enemy. She believes that no sin is unforgivable after what was done to a child. She then bows deeply and takes responsibility for Fio being imprisoned by the military. She admits that it happened because of her lack of power and accepts whatever punishment may be given. Kane then asks Cordelia to listen to what Lily has revealed. Fio quietly wonders whether the princess really did something cruel to her. Kane immediately assures her that Lily did nothing wrong. Fio reassures Lily that the princess is not a bad person. Lily is left wondering what she means by that. Fio happily explains that if nothing bad was done, then there is no reason to apologize. Her cheerful words make Lily pause as the situation becomes easier to understand. She also believes that her papa will take care of all the bad people. Fio is reassured that everything is totally fine. Kane proudly declares that anyone who bullies Fio will be turned into paste. Fio agrees with the confidence behind those words. Lily stands quietly as she prepares to speak. She sincerely apologizes to Fio and admits that the situation has caused trouble. She takes responsibility for what happened and promises to handle the matter herself. Lily explains that the incident happened because too much power was given to the military. She plans to use the situation as a chance to push through reforms. Kane questions whether the military can really be handled so easily since the Old Boys Club will not accept a woman taking charge. Plenty of nobles are also living off the pockets of others, and they will likely push back hard. Cordelia reassures him. She promises to support Lily from the shadows. Cordelia adds that if the worst comes to pass, then Kane can lend his strength too. She wants him to join the royal team. Fio happily offers her help as well, even though she does not fully understand the situation. Lily accepts the sentiment and appreciates Fio's support. Fio admits that it is reassuring to have the princess and big sister standing on Papa's side. Lily agrees that their support will not change. Cordelia explains that Kane is the type of person who is always misunderstood. She knows very well that he is a good person. Lily agrees and remembers that among everyone she has met, he is one of the most hopeless softies. Kane becomes embarrassed by their words and can only react to the two of them. Lily recalls that when they first met, she mistook him for a bandit and punched him in the face. Cordelia also remembers keeping Kane's bounty high and sending hunting parties after him. Kane treats the old matter as water under the bridge and no longer wants to worry about it. Fio understands that people have always misunderstood Kane. Kane admits that the bounty hunters who came after him helped improve his magic. He also accepts that the whole ordeal turned out to be good training. He adds that the title of Scum Cage no longer bothers him. More people recognize him now, and someday the whole incident may become a funny story. Fio becomes excited when Kane mentions the capital. She remembers seeing a castle in a picture book and eagerly wants to visit it. Kane agrees to take everyone to the capital and visit the castle. Kane promises that someday they will go there together. Cordelia and Lily are left surprised by the sudden plan. Cordelia wonders what to do about Kane's expression and considers how the situation should be handled, that there was a reason for calling everyone together this time. The meeting was partly to see how Fio was doing and partly to warn him. The unexpected warning leaves him wondering what he needs to be careful about. Cordelia hands Kane a newspaper from the capital that was published a few days ago. She tells him that looking at the article will make everything easier to understand. Kane takes the newspaper and is shocked by what he sees. The article reveals a nationwide wanted notice for Hugel. He is identified as a slave trader and is being sought as a dangerous criminal. Not long ago, General Hugel's own spy turned himself in. He confessed all of the general's crimes. Because of that confession, opinions about Kane in the capital are split. He was the true sage who had seen through the general's crimes from the beginning. The spy also revealed that Hugel was the real culprit who used the scandal to crush a business rival. The citizens are even making bets about which version of Kane is real. The rumors about him have spread throughout the capital. Cordelia warns Kane to stay away from the capital for now. Too many people in the capital are watching the situation, and Kane could easily become their next target. Kane realizes that General Hugel is now a rat in a trap. Cordelia confirms that he slipped away once, but the authorities will eventually catch him. Kane admitting that landing at least one more good punch on the target had been tempting. Still, the grown-ups kept talking about difficult matters that were hard to understand. Lily gently explained that everything had already been booked as a reward for the two of them. She encouraged Fio to eat as much as she liked in the hot springs inn and simply relax. The bastard had disappeared without a trace, and Kane could not understand where he had gone. Kane continued thinking about the search. His method only worked within a few kilometers, which left the fugitive far beyond his reach. The quiet surroundings gave Kane more time to consider the situation. With no clear trail left behind, he wondered what could be done next. Hugel sat alone at the table and waited. More than an hour had passed since he was brought there. He began to wonder if he was really supposed to sit and wait that long. Hugel grew impatient, and he cursed the long wait and wondered what was taking so long. Hugel thought about Sage Kane with irritation. He remembered how Kane had brought people to assess him. He also remembered the woman who had dared to betray him. Kane always seemed to get in his way, and Hugel could not understand why the sage kept interfering with his plans. Hugel remembered how he had barely escaped the capital with his life and had lost his rank in the process. Despite that, he still considered himself fortunate. He laughed bitterly and remarked that anyone looking so troubled must have caused trouble there. Hugel froze when a woman with long dark hair passed by in an elegant floral kimono. The sight caught him completely off guard and left him staring after her in disbelief. He could only react with a startled thought as she moved past him with quiet grace. Yoshino greeted Hugel with a graceful introduction. She gave her name as Yoshino and offered a polite request for his acquaintance. Hugel welcomed the meeting and treated it as an honor. He introduced himself as Hugel and showed clear excitement at finally meeting the legendary god Yoshino, who had lived for centuries. She recalled the stories about her making a den from human settlements and terrorizing the people who lived there. Yoshino questioned what kind of villain Hugel wanted her to deal with. Yoshino made her rule clear to Hugel. She only ate the souls of bad people. If someone came to her with a target that was not truly guilty, then that person would become her target instead. Hugel understood the danger behind her warning. Yoshino also warned that if he had done something that could not be admitted openly, then she would eat him too. Her words left no room for excuses. Yoshino looked at Hugel with a sharp smile and asked whether he understood the rule that well. Hugel gave a nervous response as he remembered Yoshino's reputation. He had heard that she rarely accepted requests, and that she would destroy a client without hesitation if the client turned out to be the true villain. Given the human trafficking crimes he has committed, he knows that he is definitely on the menu. The man declares that the one who must be eliminated is the scum called Sage. He plans to have her kill Kane before she discovers what he has done. His hatred rises as he shouts Kane Redrum with murderous intent. Yoshino recognizes the man as the fellow everyone has been talking about. Her expression remains composed as she wonders what kind of bad person he truly is. Hugel explains that all he has heard are rumors with nothing concrete. Even so, he considers the man a true villain. The first accusations are revealed as involvement in slave trading and the beating of innocent citizens. The accusations grow worse as it is revealed that he has also tamed the Demon King's daughter and is plotting to conquer the world. Yoshino quietly takes in the information and acknowledges that she understands. Hugel gathers the accusations in his mind and concludes that the sage is a scum who uses children. He seeks confirmation that the sage truly is the kind of villain described. The answer comes with a sudden impact that sends him reeling. The offer is accepted without hesitation. Yoshino declares that the monster can be left to her and promises to happily eat that monster for the sake of the others. Yoshino turns her attention to the information she has received. If everything just told to her is true, then the matter has become serious enough to demand her attention. Her expression grows sharper as the truth of the accusations begins to settle. If the story is actually true, then the man responsible has already placed himself in danger. Meanwhile, The large outdoor bath stretches across the peaceful grounds with warm water waiting beneath the open shelter. The quiet bath area gives the place a pleasant and welcoming atmosphere. Fio rushes toward the bath with excitement and happily calls out that the bath is huge. She eagerly wants Kane to look at the spacious bath while her excitement carries her forward. Kane follows behind her with a watchful expression and reminds Fio not to run. Fio lets out a soft cry as the warm water surrounds her. The pleasant heat makes the bath feel peaceful and inviting. Kane settles into the water and finds the temperature comfortable. Fio agrees with the feeling and compares the bath to paradise as she enjoys the relaxing warmth. Fio turns toward Kane while remaining in the warm water. Her attention shifts as he prepares to speak about something important. The bath gives them a peaceful view of the capital in the distance. Kane calls Fio over and draws her attention to the city. Kane asks whether Fio would like to visit the capital and experience the city for herself. Fio wonders why Kane brings up the capital again. He reminds her that when they talked with Lilia and the others, she had wanted to see the capital. Kane explains that living there would give Fio access to schools and plenty of good food. He also points out that the capital has many things that cannot be found in the countryside where they live now. Kane looks toward her and asks what she thinks about it. Fio gives a quiet hum as she continues to consider his suggestion. Fio considers the idea for a moment. She admits that living in the capital is not something she wants. The capital would not feel lonely because Marialakan and Tikalian Elichi would be there along with everyone else in town. Without them, the place would surely become boring. Kane understands the concern and agrees that skipping the capital for a while is fine. He promises to keep that in mind while Fio quietly accepts his decision. Fio happily agrees and confirms that Kane is right. Fio admits that living in the capital is not what she wants. Still, she would like to visit the city someday. She asks Kane to take her there when the time comes. Kane accepts the idea and feels that a visit to the capital could be enjoyable. The possibility of exploring the city together gives the plan a warmer meaning. Cordelia and Lily approach the bathhouse together with the intention of joining Kane and Fio in the bath. Cordelia warmly offers her villa when the time comes. The villa stands near the edge of the capital and is spacious enough for everyone to stay comfortably. Lily refuses the idea of having them stay there. Keeping them in the castle would be the proper choice. After all, Kane is the hero who saved the world. Fio and Kane are left stunned by the unexpected suggestion. The sudden reaction grows stronger as the situation takes an unexpected turn. Kane notices Cordelia and Lily in the hot spring and wonders why the two women are there. They explain that they also want to enjoy the hot springs and see no reason to miss the chance. The hot springs are exactly what the place is famous for. The two women clearly intend to enjoy the bath, rather than let Kane have the entire place to himself. Kane realizes that letting the two women have the bath alone would be a mistake. He decides to leave so they can enjoy it without him getting in the way. Cordelia and Lily refuse to let him leave so easily. They insist that Kane will not be getting away and offer their hospitality instead. Fio notices that Cordelia and the princess really love Papa. Cordelia accepts the thought without hesitation and agrees that they really do love him. A mere human, yet with overwhelming power, is how Cordelia views Kane. Despite possessing such tremendous strength, he lives far too earnestly for his own good and becomes completely flustered whenever she makes a move on him. His cautious behavior is also part of his charm because Kane can still become just sloppy enough at the end. That careless side is also adorable and makes his character even more endearing. That alone is more than enough to fall in love with. Cordelia continues to tease Kane with clear affection while pointing out that the second half of that teasing is basically just insults. Kane struggles with the situation as the teasing becomes increasingly direct and personal. Kane finally protests against the teasing and reminds Cordelia not to join in with the teasing because Lily is the princess of a country. Lily immediately takes the matter seriously. Lily makes her feelings clear by admitting that she does not dislike Kane. No matter who denies his worth, she knows that Kane is a good man. Her words leave him unsure how to respond. Kane calls her Princess Lilia and makes his feelings clear. He will not let another country take her away. If someone tries to claim her, then Kane intends to keep her tied to him by marking her as his own. She continues teasing Kane by pointing out that he could also become a useful trump card in foreign affairs. She then takes the thought even further by imagining a child with him. She believes any child they have would be strong and healthy. Kane becomes overwhelmed by her words while she remains determined to make him hers no matter what. The little girl refuses to give Papa to either of the two women. She insists that Papa belongs to her because Papa is her Papa. Her stubborn claim quickly turns the peaceful bath into a small struggle over Kane. Kane suddenly gets caught in the middle of the chaos. The splashing water forces him to react as the girls rush around him. Kane quickly slips away from the bath. The girls watches them escape and realizes that they have gotten away. In that case, Cordelia invites Fio to join them for ice cream after the bath. Fio immediately becomes excited by the mention of ice cream and happily reacts to the treat. Kane accepts the idea, but reminds everyone to thank them properly. Lily watches the scene with amusement and notices how he is already becoming a full-fledged dad. The quiet garden gives the bathhouse a peaceful atmosphere while the sounds of nature continue around the area. Kane watches the two women with a troubled look. Their strange tastes leave him wondering how they could want to pursue a banished single father like him. The two women continue discussing the situation with a more thoughtful mood. Despite everything, they still wonder whether Fio would be better off with a mother someday. Kane notices something unusual nearby and wonders what could be happening. A small bell has caught his attention and leaves him unsure why it has been placed there. Kane reaches out and examines the bell in his hand. He looks toward the bell again and wonders what it is doing there. Kane notices Yoshino searching through the grass as she wonders where the missing bell could be. She searches around the area but cannot find it and begins to worry about what to do. Kane realizes that the bell is nowhere near where Yoshino is searching. Yoshino finally notices Kane holding the bell and realizes that he may have found what she was looking for. Kane offers the bell to her and asks if it is the item she has been searching for. Yoshino receives the bell with relief and thanks him sincerely for finding it. Yoshino admits that she was really in trouble and that finding the bell truly saved her. Kane accepts her gratitude and tells her not to mention it. Yoshino notices Kane's curiosity and wonders if the bell is really that important. She becomes willing to tell him the story behind it. Yoshino holds the bell close and reveals that it contains what remains of all the human souls she has eaten so far. She then admits that the claim about the bell being there is a lie. Kane stays beside Yoshino as they continue walking together after the strange discovery. Yoshino wonders how Kane managed to figure out the truth. She explains that everyone else always believes the lie about the bell. Kane notices that Yoshino had looked completely worried just now. He knows she would not make such a troubled face over losing some simple trophies. Yoshino tries to hide her feelings as she explains that the bell is something precious to her and that its loss truly mattered. She gives a small smile and finds Kane funny for noticing so much about her reaction. Kane notices that the bell has a deeper meaning to her and wonders if Yoshino has a child. Yoshino holds the bell carefully as she prepares to explain its meaning. Kane understands that the bell holds an important meaning for her. Back in the day, Yoshino was the great Oni god who ruled the whole mountain range. She was feared by everyone, and any enemy who defied her was gotten down to the last scrap. Then one day Yoshino found a baby in the mountains. The baby was wrapped in cloth and left alone in the wilderness. It was probably someone's way of having one less mouth to feed. Back then all Yoshino ever did was fight enemies, and she was bored. She decided to raise the baby to kill time. But she knew that the baby was different from the enemies she had faced before. Yoshino admits that raising a kid is much harder than she ever imagined. Food and diapers are only the beginning, since getting the child to sleep and figuring everything out by herself takes even more effort. Kane understands that child-rearing is tough. Yoshino learns that Kane also has experience with raising a child. Kane explains that the girl is adopted and that she was not raised by him from a baby. Kane also admits that he never knows if he is doing the right thing. Yoshino agrees and reacts with a simple right. Yoshino understands exactly what Kane means. She feels that nothing in the world can beat the joy of watching a child grow up. Kane agrees with the feeling and finds that the joy of seeing a child growing up makes all the difficult parts of raising a child worth it. Yoshino explains that by the time the children are calling her mama, she becomes totally smitten with them. She recalls how she started picking up abandoned kids whenever she found them. Before long, she had a huge family. She expanded the house for them, and that was how the inn was born. Kane realizes that Yoshino is the owner of the place and wonders why she needed money. Yoshino explains that she needed money for the kids, so she turned the place into an inn. Most of the staff are also her kids. Yoshino reveals that a lot of the kids leave the nest too. The first one she picked up made the bell for her when they parted. Yoshino remembers the words left by one of her children. The child asked her to keep the bell by her side and think of it as them while calling her mama. Yoshino explains that the child was human and had passed on long ago. Even so, the bell remains precious to her because whenever she looks at it, she can see the child again at any time. The other kids all made bells just like that one and left them with Yoshino. The memory overwhelms Kane as he struggles with his emotions. Yoshino notices his reaction and calls out to him with concern as he remains deeply moved by the story. Kane apologizes for being such a sucker for stories like that. Yoshino finds him strange but understands his reaction and laughs at his response. Yoshino admits that Kane is a good person despite his reaction. She asks him to keep coming back to their inn because his presence has become welcome there. Yoshino realizes that she forgot to introduce herself and finally gives her name. She warmly welcomes Kane and expresses that it is nice to meet him. Kane introduces himself and offers the same greeting. Yoshino notices his name and pauses as the name catches her attention. Yoshino reacts with a quiet as she recognizes something. She reacts to the name Kane and calls it bad luck because it is the same name as the scam everyone talks about. Kane immediately corrects her and insists that she is wrong. Yoshino mentions that it would be nice to meet him sometime and asks if her kid could come along too. Kane explains that she is in the bath with their friend right now. Back then, Hugo watches the situation and considers that they might be out by now. He keeps his attention on the others as the search continues. He decides to act and declares that everything is settled. He willingly accepts the task of eating that monster for everyone and prepares himself for what comes next. Hugo questions her choice and asks if she really wants to leave the killing for later. Yoshino refuses because she cannot do that yet. Hugo is surprised when Yoshino refuses to leave her spot because she is still looking for something at the moment. She makes it clear that the killing can be done later. She offers a solution for her search. If he is that desperate to get him taken out, then he will give her this. He looks at the object and questions whether this doll is really what he means. She explains that it will turn grudges into power. With that, even Yoshino should be able to kill him easily. She considers the doll useful for the task she has been planning. She wishes her good luck now. Hugo looks at the doll and recognizes it as a doll that turns grudges into power. He wonders about its strange ability as he carries it with him. He holds the doll with a pleased expression and thinks that killing Kane with his own hands would feel incredibly satisfying. For his own safety, he wants to get out of this country as soon as possible. Hugo still considers himself the one who can move fastest right now. He believes the best option is to flee to Kane and finish him off himself. Before leaving, Lily makes sure Fio will be all right alone and asks about her safety. Fio assures that everything is fine. She decides to go exploring and look for Papa while doing it. Hugo notices the unexpected situation and wonders why they are here. Hugo recognizes Princess Lilia as the crown princess of the Grantial Kingdom. They also identify Cuvula as the guild master of the Adventurers Guild. The mention of the Demon King's daughter makes them realize that Sage Kane may also be here. Exploring the mountains sounds fun to Fio. However, Lily is warned that she must not go into the mountains because it is too dangerous. The warning becomes clearer as they explain that the owner of the place has many enemies. The mountains are filled with traps because of them. Fio is told again not to go into the mountains. She accepts the warning and agrees to stay away. Hugo suddenly remembers that Yoshino was supposed to take out the Demon King's daughter. He realizes that the request was never made and becomes determined to deal with the problem. He knows the matter cannot be brought up while people like that are around. He worries that Yoshino may discover what was done if they are not careful. He decides that the situation must be stopped no matter what. Hugo decides to track the Fio movements first. He focuses on finding her before making his next move. Fio notices what is happening and lets out an excited little sound as she watches the situation unfold. Fio looks at the Dragonkin and happily praises them for looking so cool. The Dragonkin man laughs and admits that it is the first time in 1,000 years that such a compliment has been heard. She warmly thanks the little one for the kind words. Hugo watches the scene and quietly recognizes the Dragonkin as the supreme dragon of the Dragonkin. He realizes that this is the progenitor of the dragon Orochi and his wife. Beastman warmly accepts Fio's kindness and calls her a very thoughtful child. Hugel quietly wonders how Fio managed to become friends with the Lion King of the Beastman Nation and earn his favor so easily. A woman praises Fio for being very good at magic for such a young lady. Fio proudly explains that Papa taught her and encourages Lily to ask him to teach her too. Hugel quietly realizes that she is recruiting Yoshino's underlings to join her banner. He looks at the inn and realizes that it is filled with powerful figures from all over the world. He sees the place as a perfect springboard for world conquest and begins to consider how useful such a gathering could become. Hugel has praised Fio for doing nicely. Fio feels happy that she has gotten to talk to all sorts of people and enjoys the experience. Fio looks around the beautiful surroundings and becomes excited by the scenery. She happily admires the place and calls it so pretty. Hugel notices that Kane is nowhere in sight and wonders if this could be his chance. The doll is brought out as Hugel prepares to test its power. He decides that it is time to see what this doll can do. Hugel grips the doll and moves forward with murderous intent. The power of the doll drives him onward as he prepares to strike at Fio. The sight of the attack makes the hidden observer realize that the moment has come. The thought forms with urgency that Kane can cut her down now. Hugel charges toward Fio with the doll in hand. His hatred surges as he closes the distance and his killing intent becomes clear.